G'day, citizens. I'm Execute. Welcome to the Inforunners. Good morning, good evening, and good night, wherever you are in the world. I'm with Algared. I was about to say I'm Execute, but I curved it last second. Yes.
And I'm Algared, and we're starting, not finishing. There you go.
Did I say finishing? Is that what I said?
No, but the usual routine is I'm Execute, he's Algared, you know.
Right. You confused me. I was like, I don't remember.
I know.
Anyway,
change the routine, everything else.
I've had a very flustered morning. I've been running around trying to find my teacup, and it just, when I lose something, I get all flustered. And then I had a kind of a interesting conversation with another content creator, and I was just not in the right headspace, and it's just kind of thrown me off before we started streaming. So yeah. Other than that,
sabotaged by a content creator.
No, they just had some legitimate questions and wanted to ask me some stuff, but it just kind of put me in this weird
facetious, but yep.
Yeah, it's fine. Just thinking about other stuff, that's all.
Yeah, it doesn't honestly, when you think of it, how humans are, it often doesn't take much to throw us off, does it? Like,
no, it doesn't.
Something throws us off our comfort zone, and then we become a mess.
Yes. Just updating a few things that I forgot to do. Jumptown is safe on Twitch. Done. I also forgot to put out the like the notifications for the stream, so to speak. Like I normally do it about midnight before I go to bed, and I just totally forgot. Went to bed. So if you didn't get one, that's why. And I did it about 5 minutes before we started. So.
Yep. Because I said, "Where's the stream?" But that's okay.
So you'll have to forgive me. I'm having a rough start this morning. But that's fine. Look at that later. Right, let's get the bots started.
That's okay, Chris. If you're having a good night out, I hope you have a good night out. Yeah, you better buy a wife for dinner. Although, personally, International Women's Day, and anniversaries, birthdays, definitely.
Yes, I am human after all. Thank you.
I see a lot of the things like Valentine's Day, and it's just
right. Bot is up and running, and
days to spend money.
What's up and running? What's the last thing I'll do? Oh, this the dogs, right? It's like a routine of things I got to go through when we start this, because if I don't turn them on, so to speak, there's certain things Algared and I can't do. So and they're not automated, and there's no way to automate them. So I've got to sit here and do them every single time.
Yep, always throws in. So the bot's up. If you got your questions, you can put it out there. Don't forget, just put the word question, and our bot will pick it up.
Yeah. We also did our thoughts on ISC yesterday.
You did?
I think that's going to become a regular thing now. It kind of allows us to do more questions with you guys, but it also gives us a little bit of, it's kind of like a free content thing. And if you guys play the YouTube game, yes, Algared did tell me that. But yeah, when you play the YouTube game, they seem to like a minimum of 3 videos a week. So by doing the live stream, the normal show, and our thoughts on ISC, that kind of gives us a free one. So yeah,
it feeds the algorithm.
Yeah. Good morning, RKNDGR. Just here too. He just says on Twitch, "Good morning" to us, Algared.
Oh, good morning.
Yet he butchers your name, as everyone does.
Everyone butchers my name.
Yeah, you usually get Alfred. In this case, you got Algared with no second A.
Yeah, I get Al-Jihad.
Yeah.
Algared.
I'm just waiting to see Aldred. I haven't seen that yet.
Aldred. Yeah. I haven't had Aldred yet.
Yeah.
Aldred.
Yeah.
I used to get to the point when it was live gaming. I used to say, just call me Al. Even live gamers used to stuff it up. I don't know. I think they used to do it deliberately.
All right. Well,
I did have another character called Salherbetia.
All right. While we wait for some questions to come in, because we don't have a single question at this point in time, and you know how the stream works. The stream ends when there's no questions. But I'm going to blame myself for there not being as many people, because I didn't put the stream up. You know, I usually put up a couple of hours in advance, so that's my fault. So we'll give a bit of a lead-in today. I just don't like dead air. I don't like the awkward silence, as it were. But what we'll do, Algared, is we'll go over and talk about some stuff on the browser while we wait for people get some questions in. So if you have a question, and this might even prompt a question. So yeah.
Yep.
So this is.
Hi, Arthur. Thank you for that $5.
Oh,
and
that's early.
Yeah, I'll finish off my point about my character, Al-Habetya, because it's a transliteration of a Hebrew word, which means fire of Yahweh, but I just thought it sounded like a really good elven name. My friends all just called it Sal or Sally, or
you look like a Sally,
but just totally butchered it, which
you look like
made me really sad. But
my mum's
anyway.
Sally, and you look nothing like my mum. So,
yeah, well, the character Sal-Habetya, I just thought it was an awesome sounding name. It sounded very elven. So it just stuck as a name, but yeah, my friends all just butchered it. Tambourine, Salvation, they just butchered it. Because the Salvation Army in Australia, they're known for tambourine players and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, they just absolutely pained me for it. Friends can be absolute bastards at times, but hey, what would you do without them? All right, the browser.
That's true. Right. So this is an image that comes from SC Leaks. It's apparently a part of their pipeline. And rather go all through the nits and gritty of it, someone was very kind to already do so on Reddit. And he kind of breaks it down here. And if you guys want me to link it in chat, I can. But basically what he goes through is he kind of talks where the Polaris is up to. So I'm just going to read these kind of key points. So the Polaris exterior progression is to LOD 0, exterior approaching grey box review. So you'll find most of them are up to grey box review. 2 variants. One continued its LOD 0 pass, the other passing LOD 0 gateway review. So that's 2 variants of some ship. Aegis Retaliator Gold Pass, awaiting grey box gate review. Unannounced Vehicle 1 and 2, both at LOD 0 gateway review. And the Zeus updates approaching the end of the grey box. Now, there was some photos of that, and I did have it open, and I've closed it. But I'm sure you guys have seen it. If not, we'll go look at it. And then another new ship progressing through grey box. And the reason why I want to talk about that is they have a name. And the name is Intrepid. They have nothing else about what size it is or anything like that. It's just that there's the name of a ship called Intrepid. And I know, like me, you instantly would have thought of Star Trek, yeah?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. And as soon as me and Algared started talking about this, we went straight to RSI. And then we started going through every single kind of thing. And the only thing we can kind of think of is like an advanced starter. That's kind of what we came to, yeah? Because
it was the only one where we don't have a ship in that size.
Yep, essentially.
And I initially thought, maybe it's a medium, because I was forgetting the medium ships they've got. I was thinking we got Aurora and Connie, but then we've got the medium, the few other ships in there. So yeah, it kind of made us think advanced starter. Yeah.
Yep. So other than that, yeah, obviously could be a completely different manufacturer, of course.
Absolutely.
But the most Star Trek-y one is obviously RSI, like knowing the Mantis and a few other things like that. But yeah, the name, it is a cool name. I agree with Artemis, who's in YouTube chat. He says it's a cool name, and I agree. There's something cool about it.
I agree with that as well.
I can't really think of a role for it though. Unless you can, and maybe chat might have a statement or so. So again, if you want to put in a question but put statement after it, what you think it might be, because again, wild speculation at this point. Let's go nuts. We've only got a name to work with, but like, what type of ship do you think essentially would Intrepid work for? My interpretation is almost feels like cautious, right? So it almost feels like a security guard. I almost think Hammerhead. Do you know what I mean? That's kind of where I'm at. Like some kind of guard ship or redeemer like ship could be a way to do it as well. So yeah, it'll be really interesting to see where it pops out at. But yeah, that's all we've got as a name. Right.
And if you look at their pipeline, like a lot of that information is also, apart from the name, pretty much everything else in that little snippet you were looking at is actually in the monthly report. So
yeah.
Polaris, the 2 vehicles, the gold standard. Yeah. So
yeah.
But
so we've still got
the name.
We'll come back to them in a second. Let me just go through this, and then we'll go back to it. So these are all the kind of ones from the what Algared calls the yellow curtain. I don't know why it's called the curtain, but it works on so many levels, because it's like dark and moody and whatever. But yeah, the yellow silhouette, yellow curtain video. The only one that I would add to that is where it says hover bikes. I did a very short, well, it's literally a short, a YouTube short.
It was a short
on the Mirai Pulse, right? So that's something that was passed to me. So that hover bike should be the Mirai Pulse in the very first thing you see in that video. X1 series, you know about it. Medical Esther, as you and I have, you know, talked about, and a lot of other. Well, obviously this guy kind of agrees with me, you and Paul, because me and Paul think that makes the most sense. What they're calling the Mirai Guardian, which is that really big Essential Fury that also appears in the Yellow Curtain video. MPU variant Repair, which is really obvious to me and you because we've been around that long. The Zeus, obviously, this I don't agree with, right? And he keeps calling it a small RSI ship, right? There is nothing that tells you that it's RSI, right? Anyway, Legionnaire, Retailer, Base and Price. So this is the most interesting one in the video. This is the one you and I talked about till the cows come home. But I think what he's done wrong is put the word RSI there, because there is nothing that tells you what manufacturer it is. It is too... It's too... broad.
It's got aspects from... several. You could say it's RSI.
Yeah. Looks like
you could say yes. It looks like an RSI cockpit.
I've heard so many before you and I nailed the size down. I had people saying, "Oh, it's the Nautilus." So that means, like, just to really list the ones that we've looked at, it's RSI, Crusader, Aegis, and Anvil are the four ones I've heard touted.
People felt they could see aspects of the design language.
I've heard people say Consolidated Outland, but unlikely during to the fact that they have 3 ships in that size class already. So for me, I think RSI is the logical choice, just based on the fact that we know they're working on so many RSI ships this year. It kind of makes a lot of sense. And it would just be kind of a no-brainer. It's kind of like, you know, the year they worked on the Cutter and stuff, and the Corsair, we got the Cutter, I should say. You know what I mean? So when they work on something similar, it allows them to two at one go. We know they're working on the Apollo, the Polaris, and every RSI ship under the sun. If that's not RSI, you know, he's probably come to the same conclusion. That's why he's put RSI there. But I don't think it's correct to put that there when you're speculating. That's all I'm saying. But
it could be. And based on what we're thinking, you know,
this might be
got a new RSI ship called the Intrepid.
This might be the Intrepid.
New ship called the Intrepid.
Yeah, this might be it, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
But whether it's RSI is another thing. But it makes sense. Like, even before they were doing the family ships, you used to find that they would do a ship and then the next one or two would be the same manufacturer, just because, and you could see that making sense because they've already got the people in the groove for that design language. So doing the family ships just really zeroes that in even more. So
what else do I have here? These are just little things I collected during the week. Yep, seen that already. Monthly report. Now, you went through this because I have a problem with my bipolar. I cannot read walls of text. So what would be your major takeaways, Algared?
I'll go back to the chat that I sent with you because otherwise I'll forget all the points.
So that's what he does. He's very nice of him to do that. He kind of goes through and summarizes it for me because I just can't. I can't do it. It drives me mental.
I can't say I was doing it because I was summarizing it for you. I was doing it because I thought, wow, these are really big.
Yeah, these are cool. Is why you said
these are cool ideas.
Yeah, and I agree with you. But it's very handy for me that you do it for me.
Let's see. The first one that caught my eye was, well, the first one that catches your eye is the number of ships they're working on. So that you know, the Polaris, this part vehicles. Here. And that was literally kind of what you just went through.
Yeah, we just went through. Oh, there's that image of the Zeus we're talking about, by the way. So yeah, we can look at that at the same time. All right.
So, you know, the Zeus is through Grey Brox and all the others. But it was as you went down further, you actually saw other stuff they were talking about. So I'm just seeing if I can find the first one. So monthly report, master modes, core gameplay, continue to work on design, tune archetypes. They completed about 90% of a ship in master mode.
That's a lot.
That blew my mind. Wasn't that I ever doing master mode? It was a 90%. I was like, wow.
That tells me they're very confident in their new master mode, and everyone else is going to have an issue.
Yeah,
But it's
so
complaining
stuck
about
up
it at the
with
moment.
Allied Master.
Yeah, because they've done it all already. Too bad. I'm going to be honest with you. Having jumped in master modes and actually played it, you can see why they've done it. It's really obvious on so many levels. Like, and I know we've gone over it, but I'm going to say it in a summary real quick. It brings the ships closer, so you can see the art. You're not shooting at this pixel that's really, really far away. It makes turrets more relevant. It doesn't simplify it, but it makes it easier for the masses of people. It's not this really high skill ceiling it was before, and you want a game that appeals to the most people as possible. If you want a game that is really successful, there's two ways you can do it: either ultra competitive, or it appeals to a lot of people, and it appeals to a lot of people. And I'm going to give you a little example, Algared, right? So you know Helldivers 2, how popular it's been, right? Yesterday or the day before, they dropped a patch, right? And they just turned up the difficulty like crazy. And they're like, oh, this is how it was meant to be before we released it. And everyone is most people are mega pissed. Because it went from this really casual, fun game that almost anyone can play to it's just ultra ridiculously hard. And it's like, well, if that's what your original intent was, why wasn't it like that from the get-go? You've literally had it for a month and almost a month and a half. And now all of a sudden you decide to turn the difficulty up. It's like, like, why didn't you do that in the first week? So now you've had all these people buy the game, and now you've just turned it into Dark Souls of FPS, and it's a bit weird. I think they need to backpedal personally, but
I think you'll probably find they will as people leave because they'll be.
Yep, it's gonna it's gonna cost them players. Like they've already in the last 2 days they've already had a 4% drop in the player base. So and that's in just 2 days. So and we haven't got to the weekend yet. So when you get to the weekend and all those casual people log on. So it's going to drop off. But again, and you take that and rely it to Star Citizen. Do you want a game that is ultra competitive and most people can't play, or do you want to go? We're talking about Squadron 42 here mainly, right? This is what the flight model's for. There's no reason you can't have two separate flight models, one for multiplayer and one for single player. But again, that experience was fun. I had a lot of fun. I was in a ship with another person, and then they were in a ship with me, and I could see having fun with a couple of mates out in a connie and shooting a few NPCs or other players.
And if you're in a turret, you want to do stuff to make being on that multi-crew ship more engaging and more fun. And I think that closeness does do that. One of the things that I just noticed as I was rereading it, after I posted it, I said, that seems really impressive if I'm reading it right. So, that's the type of thing I'll do when I send, I'll pick out the bits that catch my eye and I'll say, hey.
Well, when they first talked about kind of doing them all, it made it sound like it was going to take them forever. And
I remember we were saying, man, that's going to be a massive job. They'll never do it.
Well, it's under 6 months since they kind of talked about it. So I'm kind of impressed.
That is an impressive, hence my comment as well. Like that 90% was like, wow, that's a lot.
Yeah. And just to be clear, that's not gold pass, so they're still going to have to come back and do all the art and stuff. But that's just the numbers of how they fly, and it'd be. I think the interesting part is just going to be see the direction they've taken certain ships. So the most interesting thing there, like when it comes to 323, is going to be getting in, and all those ships are going to feel different again. So all of a sudden, like you know how I forced you to go out in the Caterpillar, it's going to be almost like that again. Going out in a new ship, and it's like, does it feel the same as it used to, or is it this? New
you're going to need to learn to fly your ships again. And that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah. Is it a new pair of shoes? Type of thing?
Okay, so the second thing that caught my eye was work continued on jump points. I can't remember exactly the section it was in. With the team implementing an updated alignment mechanic now. Yeah, okay. But the UI was also added to give players information on whether their ship are capable of actually completing the travel. But there was also successful test transitioning between Stanton and Pyro across the two separate servers that were completed too. So again, I thought, wow, that's pretty big, because that's one of it. That whole server meshing idea of it being able to transfer between the servers, that was always seemed to be a big aspect. But being able to use a wormhole was big. And also, life support is now fully integrated into the resource network. So life support generator and tank are now functional.
The other, this image here, I had a lot of people say to me that they think that means that ships are now going to come up through the floor and then kind of like they're also going to be delivered by a lift, which would be interesting because at the moment they just kind of spawn in and drop. So it would be kind of cool. Well, if we're able to spawn them in your hangar now, you're actually going to have a way to kind of animate in that front of the player, aren't you? So
yeah, and you don't want them just to pop in the view because that's immersion breaking. Like I can remember being on Orsa and looking out the old windows and just watching life go by, and there was that one pad, and every so often you'd see boop.
Yep, you just
wouldn't fly, and it just pop into existence.
Yeah. Well, again.
So
in the beginning,
they've also got life support systems on working with the tanks and everything functional. So that means that things are going to be picking up a pace in terms of those multi-crew ships or even any ship with atmosphere. So try flying a ship without a helmet if it doesn't have atmosphere, and you're going to start finding you're in trouble. Or if it's not supposed to have atmosphere, you'll start to have trouble. Your comment there was damn a lot to talk about.
Yeah, and that's why we're talking about it now, because usually the monthly reports are not super meaty, but there's a lot in that, and a lot. And I'm going to be honest, there's a lot in that is new that they haven't talked about. They didn't talk about it in ISC. They didn't talk about it anywhere else. And again, when they're in the ISC and they're essentially repeating information from CitizenCon and updating that, you're always on the hunt for new news, and that's what we've been talking about here this morning with the Intrepid and things like that. So it's just the new stuff that I'm after, and
that's the third takeaway I grabbed from monthly report. The fourth was radar and scanning being completed. They completed an important refactor to reduce the number of radar components and all the other stuff in the ship. So they're working on the radar and really starting to fine tune that. Previously, each seat operator had a unique radar. Now the vehicles can share a single radar. So to me, that also seems like it reduces the load or reduces the effort of the programming. You're not duplicating stuff, so that's going to save.
I remember you saying something about they also put the modules for gravity generated, and there was something else, gravity and something else.
It's probably going to come. I've got to reread the points. But now they can share the information between radar operator, pilot, gunners, and that type of stuff. And it's still possible for vehicles to contain multiple radars. So that ties in with ships like the Aquila, the Tortoise, Terrapin, the MSR, which have got those, not only the standard radar suite, but additional radars. So that's a positive as well. So you can actually have different people working on different things. A bit like I would imagine with the mole, where you get three turret operators working on mining, working on the same rock or doing different things or having a different aspect. So that was something as well. And then they also had an Arena Commander update. That seemed pretty cool because the team concluded engineering work for streaming. Technology will allow Arena Commander to utilize any persistent universe location in the Arena Commander. So to me, that seemed like Theatres of War, Xeno Threat, Siege of Orison, all of those things can now be put into Arena Commander as well. So you can get all of those events as matches on Arena Commander if they want. So that seemed huge. And then they worked on. They also worked on an update for the reputation system. So reputation-based hostility, ensuring that if someone is being attacked, any nearby allied or security faction members will come to their defense. So that makes being a murder hobo a little harder. But again, it was just trying to do stuff to bring the universe alive. There are other things I noticed. There was stuff on AI traversals and the way they walk across the land and being able to expand that out. And there was stuff on radar, but I can't remember that. I think I just spoke about that.
You also sent this to me as well.
Yep.
And I actually looked into it. This guy, this Polakis workshop guy, right? I ended up going to his website, and he's just done a few of them, but he's doing them off his own back. So
But damn, that looked really impressive.
Yeah, so they're not an official product, but this is just his guy doing his own thing. And he's got the he's done a Santoki. I don't know why it's taking so long to load, but it's just not loading. But yeah, he did a Santoki eye, and he did the Mantis, and there's one other one he's done as well, but it's just again not loading for me. Or yeah, I think he did a Raven. That's the other one. But yeah, for some reason they're just really slow to load. But yeah, they do look really cool. But yeah, as I said, they are not official like the one we looked at last week.
Yeah, it was something that popped up in a feed, but it was Twitter, and I don't use Twitter, so
yeah. Well, I only use Twitter to talk to Star System people. I'm not a Twitter person either. I'm not a twit. I just do it whatever. And I think changing the name to X is just a bit weird when you've got an established brand like Twitter. But yeah, anyway. Yeah. And I'm at twitter.com, so you can't tell me off because it's Twitter. Realistically, X Twitter, whatever, call it whatever you want. But yeah.
So anyway, those 6 or 7 points were our takeaways or my takeaways on monthly report for the PU. If you want more detail, go watch Paul's stream from yesterday where he actually reads the whole lot and gives his thoughts. So
yeah, he'll go through it and give you all his thoughts as well.
That was monthly report accelerated, or Algared accelerated, as X wanted to call it.
Yeah. I'm actually thinking about doing that as a little show, but we'll see. See how it goes.
Yeah, we're still talking about the layout we'd go for that, whether it's solo, duo.
Yeah, maybe let us know. Do you want us? So Algared would go do the summary, and then he'd bring it to me and share it with me, and we'd talk about it, or just Algared presenting on his own. So either or. I think the easier one though is to do it together because then I can do all the background stuff, and then Algared doesn't have to learn how to drive the show himself. So we'll see. Right. Let's do some questions, Algared. What do you think?
Yep.
Got one there from Waffle.
All right, so let me go up to questions.
Waffle says, have you guys seen the Q&A on Eminem? And if so, do you have any questions left unanswered? There's a question on, I'm assuming he means master modes. No, I have not, and we'll go look at it. If that is the case. Because that's obviously dropped while you and I have been asleep. What is going on with the net here? This is so slow. Someone at my house must be downloading. It's the only thing that makes sense. Yeah.
Illuminaria says they're convinced that bad audio must be my branding. I'm going to blame that. I'm going to blame the slow internet that you've got. Yeah.
Yes, it could be in this case, but yeah, I don't have any audio problems from you. I can't see anything on master modes, Waffle. You've got me on Discord. Just link it to me if you can. I don't see anything here on master modes. Do you? Master modes Q&A.
No. That'd be in Spectrum, wouldn't it?
Maybe he's talking about it's about to come out and they're taking the questions.
There it was.
Whereabouts?
Right there. Right top. Star Citizen Live. Q&A, master modes.
Okay. Oh, this would be the, we can't watch the video, obviously. Yeah, okay.
No.
I'll watch that later.
Haven't seen it.
No, I haven't seen it.
I usually don't I usually don't watch my Star Citizen Live these days. It's too early.
And you'll probably get one or two things out of it in an entire hour. It's very long-winded and it needs to be truncated by a massive amount, and it's been that way for it's also been that way for about the last 4 years. Yeah. It needs to be fixed. Anyway, right. Next question, please.
Yeah, I can't do anything about it's not my mic. I can't do anything about the crickets. They get in. I'm zapping. I'm living in a insecticide world at the moment. So.
The thing I'll say to you, Algared, is since you got that new mic, we never had crickets on the old one. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
So you need to play with it and figure it out. I've said that to you multiple times. It's all good.
Right. Yeah, I keep playing with it. I keep playing with the noise gate and the other
stuff. Or maybe we go back to the old mic until you fix the new one. Anyway, all right.
I'll fix the new one if you don't use it.
All right. Mark CZ7 says, do you think the Apollo will drop with 323? And I'm going to combine this with another question by Lady Space Patrol, who says 2 upcoming variants progress through the pipeline. One continues its Lot Zero pass, the other passing Lot Zero gate review. Do you think this refers to the Apollo Medivac and Triage last seen in White Box in October 2023? Totally possible. There's not any other really variant ship that we're aware of. Again, but it could be a whole new variant. We don't know. You know, that's the mystery of it, right? Trying to nut out what this stuff is. But yeah, you're right. It was in a white box state, so the next state after that would essentially be, the grey box, and they do. That means it would go from white box to grey box, and it is a fairly kind of medium. Actually, it's the smallest large ship in the game, from memory. So it is a fairly big-ish ship.
But we haven't heard anything, so.
Well, the other thing is technically...
The last thing we heard was the white boxing stuff.
Technically speaking, though, one is the ship and one is a variant.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like the Cutter. If you think about when the Cutter came out, they said that they'd call it a new ship. And then when the 2 other variants came, they were called variants. So one is the ship and one is the variant. So that kind of is evidence against that. Again, unless it's just a slip of the tongue. Yeah, I don't know.
And if they're saying it's a new ship, and you wouldn't expect it to be Apollo because that's not really.
No. You didn't hear it. 2 upcoming variants progress through the pipeline. One continue its Lot Zero pass. That's completely different from the new ship.
Yeah. They'd go ship and variant rather than 2 variants. So yeah.
Yeah, it'd be like a known ship and its variant or something like that. Is how you would assume
as you just said, it could be a slip of the tongue.
Yeah, where they've just called them 2 variants. Yeah. So we're all human after all. So yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, we're down to 4 questions, guys. So please get some more questions in, or this is going to end very rapidly.
So Limited Respawn says, when do CitizenCon tickets go on sale, and do they usually sell out? They go on sale when they go on sale.
So last year was June. I've had a few people asking me about this in the last while. But we've heard them before COVID, the year COVID was going to hit, they were going to sell them in March, right? So I would think you could safely say March to June would be a safe bet. They don't want to do it too late, obviously, because then it makes the prices of everything go up. But if you are in England or even thinking about going to Manchester for CitizenCon, you can probably put a deposit down, but realize you may lose that if they change something. But I think you'd be pretty safe to put a deposit down. Yeah.
If you're looking at the...
Yeah, I think you would... Well, if you look, let's look at the last, the one at LA. They didn't really run out of tickets. There was still lots of kind of tickets to buy. And from what who was talking to me yesterday? I think it might have been Waffle actually that was talking to me, and he actually did give me the number of the venue. Waffle, if you can hear me, what is the number of the venue? Just private. Yeah, okay, I got messages up here from Waffle. Hang on. Well, okay, that's a wall of text.
Waffle says it was him.
Yeah, Waffle, just Discord me the number. It was like 12,000 to 6,000, so that's quite a lot of people for one venue, from what I remember. Anyway.
So they certainly kept the normal tickets up. The VIP tickets sold out.
Yeah, the VIP tickets sold out in like half an hour. So yeah, you missed out.
Yeah, I didn't even have a. If I was going last year, I'd have been peeved because I didn't even have a chance in Hades of getting one of those tickets.
So there you go. Waffle said it on YouTube. 11,900 people. That's a lot of people to fit in a venue, and I think they'll probably scale the size of the venue. That's the one amphitheater, I think you said. So it's pretty nuts. So yeah, that's a lot of people, I think, especially from the start.
Well, I know in comparison to last year's, I know at one point Sandy was saying they'd have a small event.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll probably have a small event next year in Manchester. Was originally what I think she said as we were texting back and forth. But that's, that's like a year and a half out type thing. It's things change, plans change.
Yep.
What's a small event for one person could be a massive event for someone else. So yeah, smaller in comparison to LA, smaller in comparison to So
I think Well, I think I don't know. We're not from Europe, right? So I kind of put the question out there, and someone can let us know in chat. What would be better from a population standpoint? And I have to assume it would be in Europe over England, because then you're bringing everyone from Europe over to the one side. Where if it's kind of like, I'd assume Frankfurt's more centrally located in Europe. That's, I don't know. Is that what works in your head? But we're not from there, so we don't know. So let us know your thoughts there, because that's where I assume would be better, with Frankfurt. And by the same token, I wouldn't say LA is the best either. I would. I don't know USA either. Like, I guess it would be New York or LA because they're the bigger population centers. So yeah.
And the other thing that comes out, someone in chat just reminded me, because they said this year's CitizenCon is the big one, and I think lots of going to go on pushing into 2025. And that's one thing Sandy did talk about, was they were wanting to do a world tour in 2025, literally going around everywhere. And I always saw that as promotion, celebration of Squadron 42, and that would be why you did the world tour, and why they're looking at Australia in that period as well, which is where that conversation had come from. So. Yeah.
So a few people in chat are saying Germany. One guy says all Prague. So yeah, somewhere centrally located. Okay, that's good to know.
Like the Gamescom or conference.
Well, would it be like you and me that like they set up CitizenCon at Uluru because they think it's centrally located? Do you know what I mean? It's like the same thing. All right, let's Mount Rushmore. Let's go. North Carolina. Oh no, it's not North Carolina. What is it? It's
I don't know. Wherever it is.
It's North Dakota. I think it is. North Dakota. I said North Carolina, but I meant North Dakota. I think that's where it is. But you get my whole point, right? It's just in, and they call that a flyover state. So apparently there's not many people there. I don't know. So like again, I think England's probably not the best choice for the population, but it's easily a really good choice for CIG, having so many people that worked on Squadron being there. And one thing I've kind of learned, and you can correct me if I think I'm wrong here, but most of the CitizenCon is for the staff. We just happen to be lucky enough to be able to kind of go.
I've argued that with people for years, that it's really a chance for the staff to share those. I think it's a chance for the staff to share what they've been doing, and for them to get reinvigorated by us being there. So we're there for their benefit, rather than the fact that we get a massive hype out of it and get to see them and talk to them and do all that stuff. It's just an added bonus. But, I've always thought it's for them.
In chat, Aurelius Indominus says CitizenCon would be a real high point if it was in Amsterdam.
I wouldn't happen to be where you're from, would it?
Yeah.
I always think it'd be great if it was in Sydney, but again, that's my bias. But
see, because the other thing, people would go, no, Melbourne's better. It's the same thing here. So I don't think there's any really 100% fair place to do. Well, look at it this way, right? The same problem that you and I have in get to Manchester, so many more people would have that exact problem coming here.
Come on, could you imagine? Just imagine they could do it. CitizenCon in the Opera House.
I don't know. I'll put that question.
That'd be iconic.
Let's put the question.
I don't know how good it'd be, but it'd be iconic.
Hang on, Aaron. Let's put the question out to chat then. Would you guys like to come down to Australia because you get to have a holiday here? But I don't know. Like, to me, Australia. We live here, so to me, Australia is normal to me. I don't know. I think you guys kind of see it as an exotic location, but honestly, it's just like anywhere else. Essentially the temperament changes and stuff like that. So yeah, again, I guess it's a reason to come to CitizenCon, stay a couple of weeks or a month after and enjoy the place. But I don't think everyone can afford that. Like how you and I are struggling to go to Manchester. Right. Think of that in reverse, where it's just kind of me and Algared, and how many other Aussies are going to come? 5, 10?
How many turned up to PAX back in the day?
Well, I know of a handful of other content creators that are wanting to come, right? Yeah. But I go, you flip it, right? Where they're coming from Manchester to Australia, and I think you would find, just because of the price, it would drop considerably, the number of people that would want to come.
You might find the Europeans dropped off, but I think that Would the Americans drop off?
I think everyone would kind of drop off because it puts the price up considerably, right? But I think that's what I'm trying to weigh up. This place you don't get to go very often, versus like how much does it really cost? And I'd be really interested. Like back in PAX, there were a couple of Americans that came over, right?
Yeah.
But there wasn't many of them because of the expense.
There were
Right?
Europeans who came over as well. But the advantage, like as I'm just thinking about, like the FPS from would be about the same, I think, for an American to Australia versus America to Europe.
Do you know where I, believe it or not, think the sweet
what they get is also
the sweet.
Hang on. They'd also get the value of their dollar. So
that's true. When they got here, everything would be really, really cheap. So the flights would be more expensive, but the accommodation, the food would be heaps cheaper.
I'm not sure it'd be more expensive. I'm not sure what the price is from America to Europe to England versus America to Sydney or something like that.
But we do know it costs CIG a lot of money. That's why they don't.
It costs CIG a hell of a ton of money because all their stuff's over there.
Yeah, I assume it'd be almost twice the price of normal because they had to rent a lot of stuff. It wasn't just there for them to access and stuff like that. But I'm actually thinking about it realistically. I'm trying to break this down. The sweet spot might be somewhere in Asia. Because then you've got people that can come from Europe, fairly short flight, from LA, not as long as other destinations, and then you can come up from Australia into Asia. So that might be the sweet spot. Maybe not Singapore, but Singapore or Korea.
I always thought a lot of the key when I used to play a lot of MMOs, Singapore seemed to be where a lot of the hubs were. So in terms of the drink. Where I coming from.
Don't underestimate the number of people in Asia that play this game, by the way. I got actually invited by a group in the Philippines to go to a Bar Citizen at one point. They wanted me to fly up and do the Bar Citizen and then go home. And I'm like, I can't afford that. But that sounded so cool. They just wanted me to go to Manila. And it's like a 7-hour flight from where you live. So that means it's like another 3 hours from where I live. But yeah, that would have been cool just to go to a Bar Citizen in a random country and come back.
The Citizen Ninja was saying the prices would be double to Australia from can't see it because there's an icon in front of the name, but bit of a text. But
what's their name?
Yeah, so Citizen Ninja was saying plane tickets would be double to Australia than
from Europe, rather. Yeah. No, that'd be about accurate, and that's kind of what we're seeing as well, because like. We kind of looked into it last year, and someone was very gracious and offered us standby tickets with American Airlines, and they would have only been $500 US. Now, normally they're about, I think they were the
1,500, 1,700.
The cheapest I could find was 1,300 Australian. So you have to do some conversions there, but trust me, that's cheaper than $500 USD. And yeah, I was very tempted to go, but I didn't.
Yeah, I do know the airfare to England is about $1,000 more. At least that's what it always used to be, because I've been to the States a couple of times in the past, and the key fact of it, wanting me to go US over Europe, was literally the cost.
Yeah, it's cheaper for some reason. It's really weird.
$1,000 extra to spend. So yeah, it does get a bit.
Yeah,
pricey.
What Salty Dog says there in Twitch chat is literally epitome of what we're trying to explain here. So I think CIG would prefer not to have 100% of employees in attendance be traveling. I think they hold local to an office so they can save on the expense budget. Yeah, well, it also means that
100%.
you can bring things from the studio, so you can get your computers from the studio. You've got people on the ground locally that can organize it. There's so many benefits, where if they did it here, they would have to literally rely on people here to help them, or hire someone to set it all up for them. And I think the main reason they did it is because Sandy is from here, and we do know that they spent a lot of time with family when they were down here.
Yeah, they even turned up to PAX.
Yeah. Well, they also said on the same weekend as PAX, so you could do PAX and that at the same time. So yeah.
Yep.
All right. Next question.
Next question is from Artemis.
Yep.
Artemis TGM says, "Hi, Inforunners. Just a quick appreciation for the updates and a lot of work that you both put in." BTS question. Question: do you have a Mirror Guardian price prediction? Ballpark. I'm going to say no. But we don't really, we've got a rough. All we've really got is Mirai and size. We don't really know the purpose or anything else yet.
Let's take some things out of it then. So let's take the size out of it. Let's take out what it is out of it. But let's look at the trend of what we're seeing. Prices are going up across the board.
Yep.
Zeus is more expensive. We've seen the Vulture jump in price. We've seen, like, look at the whole trend last year. Everything's going up, like, substantially up. Like, I would imagine, let's just say, let's say it was a Zeus coming in again. Look at what happened with the Zeus. We had two ships at 135. First time we've ever seen two variants exactly the same price. And then the other one was 190. There was a clear gap where that ST, the essentially leaked version of the Zeus, was meant to go. Yeah,
you could almost see there felt like there was a ship missing from that lineup.
So 130 to 190, where you look at the other ships in that lineup, so the Freelancer, the Cutlass, and the Spirit, and all of those have gone up as well.
Yeah.
So it is a noticeable increase across the board. Now I'd have to sit down and look at the percentage, but I'd say it's somewhere between 10 to 15% on the low end. And there are other ones like, look at the Vulture when that dropped. And I know that's almost 2 years ago now, but that went from 130 and went to 100. It went up $35 to 175. So that was that's one of the biggest jumps we've seen in that $100 to $200 window. And I think anyone that's been here, I don't care if you've been here 10 years or 5 years or 2 years, you can start to see that there is a progress. They said this was going to happen, that all the ships are going to go up in price.
It's going to happen.
Yeah. And we also thought most of the better ships would come towards the end, because if the better ships come at the end, they make more money on. It's pretty obvious.
People want to buy them. Yeah. Which is I suppose it's another reason why we always suggest the Endeavour, because we already know that's going to be one of the last ships they do, so it's going to be one of their better ships.
And it's such good value. Yeah. And the Crucible's no different. Not just not to the same extreme. But there is an advantage there too. If you are looking for other ships that are up the top end, you could, like, say you got a Crucible, and I'm just going to give an example. It comes out and goes up by $200. You know what I mean? You can jump off that onto something else, and you've saved $200. Yeah, thanks, Google.
He loves you, face it.
Oh, she's a pain in the butt. Anyway, that was that question. Is there anything else you want to add to that one, Algared?
No.
I think that's the only place you can kind of really go on where it's going to cost.
Yeah, I think we know price. Really look at the size of it.
I'm losing you, Algared. You're lagging. All right, he'll be back in a second.
And
all right, you're back. You're back. Go again.
I'm back with a flurry. Yeah, I think the only way we can really have a go at price is look at the size of a ship, compare it to ships of the same size.
Yeah.
To give you a rough ballpark, but because we don't know what the purpose is, what the function is.
Yeah. Like there's so many.
You can only go.
Yeah, there's so many things there can be, but I think we can safely say, and you correct me if I'm wrong here, I think we could safely say it's not industrial, because Mirai seems to be more to the combat side.
Or high performance.
Yeah, performance racing.
Industrial versus high performance. That would mean I'd expect it to be even more expensive than.
Well, one of the things I said to you, Algared, was remember when they pulled the ST, the Zeus ST, I said, I reckon that'll probably come with that Mirai thing, because I reckon it's a racer. I reckon they're going to probably release say they release 3 of them at the same time.
Yep.
It makes sense, because if you're going to do a whole new class of racing, up until now we've had loop races essentially, or inner line races, or whatever you want to call it, right? These are long distance multi-system endurance racing. You're not going to just want to drop one. You're going to want to drop, I'd say, minimum 2, most likely 3, right?
Yeah.
And if you've got the Zeus and you've got the Mirai, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't get another one. I don't know who it's from or what manufacturer, but yeah, like there's so many that you could put in there. But again, it's medium races. We have not had that class of ship before, so that Drake purple they talk about. Or they laugh about. What if that's a racing variant? You know what I mean? Like, or the Cutlass White or something, whatever they want to call it. Just as an example, they could have a Freelancer one too. There's no reason they can't go back and do 2. We talked about 2 variants. There you go. A Freelancer variant that's a racer and a Cutlass variant's a racer. Now I'm just chucking that out there, right? But again, there's so obviously a racer, and when you run it all through from a logical standpoint. It's the only thing that really stood out that covered all the bases. Now, I've heard people say, oh, it's just a luxury variant. Fair enough. It could be a luxury variant, but why is it covered in fins? And all the things that we've seen that are covered in fins are races.
Are fast. Yeah.
So
yeah, and I could see a reason for doing a long distance endurance racer, because it would, once as we get jump points and different systems on, it gives a reason for people to actually visit those other solar systems and see the beauty that's on offer in each of them. Like, how many times do you stop and watch a sunrise, or just something catches your eye that's just absolutely stunning in Star Citizen in Stanton? And we've been in Stanton for feels like years now.
Well, like the other thing that I was just thinking of while I was listening to you talk and the sunset stuff, I started thinking about how they're doing the engineering gameplay. It would literally be a really good way to highlight the other things you can do on a ship while a race is going on.
Yeah, and also, you know, just fine tuning your engineering and swapping out your
on the fly, no less.
Yeah.
So what if you're going through one segment where you've got to go a particular speed or a particular component or something like that? So they're swapping things out to increase the performance.
Components out, ready for that system that's coming up that's got the neutron pearl. So you know, got to make sure we've got the right components in. Otherwise, we're going to fry stuff. And
then again, like the other thing I say is look at other gameplay things they're doing. Like and I said that to you when the Zeus was announced. I said I'm pretty sure one of them will be a bounty hunting variant because they were working on bounty hunting. It was really obvious, and there we go. The marquee mark dropped, and it was like, oh, I'm not surprised at all. You know, and it's the same thing again with the Guardian, as they're calling it. What do you think of that? Because the Guardian, I go, well, that could be a bounty hunter guarding things. That could be a medical ship because it's protecting your life. Like, do you know what I mean? So I'm looking at different ones.
Avenues for what it could be, yeah.
Yeah, you just don't know until they drop it, and that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, and I think, like, I kept, you know, I made the point of just how often we stop and watch a sunrise or a sunset, and I think part of that is as they change the lighting and do the you know, all of those types of things, as they dial up that up, it changes that experience as well. So yeah, I could see, but I could see racing, like endurance racing between systems, being encouraging us to go to those different systems, be able to then go down to the planets and see the points of interest on those planets. Because if I was doing a intergalactic race points would be those points of interest you want people to go and see.
Well, I actually think from memory, now I'm not the law guy between the two of us, but I'm pretty sure there are races. I remember there was like a racing version of the Mercury mentioned, unless I'm mistaken, and there was some other ships mentioned in lore that were bigger. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Actually, now I think about it, you and I both know that the Mercury kind of increased in size, and the Spirit replaces that. There's the variant, right there. A Spirit, like an R1 or something like that, you know, like a racing version of the Spirit makes a lot of sense all of a sudden.
Crusader enter the racing world because we can't be outdone by Mirai or Misk. How disgusting.
Yeah.
Yep.
It'd be interesting.
Okay.
All right.
Carsten Christensen says, question, Intrepid. Definition, extremely brave and showing no fear of dangerous situation. So my guess is it would be a brawler battleship.
That's kind of what I said, like kind of like the Redeemer or like another gunship alternative. And the other one I think of is Brave and Into the Unknown, so Explorer as well. Again, a variants, so you could have an Explorer variant or a gunship variant. And we do need, believe it or not, we do need another gunship. We don't have a competitor to the Redeemer. And the only, I guess we do technically because they list the Andromeda as a gunship generalist. But I think it would be kind of really cool. Like, and I as it came up on that episode, so we did an episode that we're never going to air, called "Can We Fix It the Redeemer, and we did it with Paul. And the reason we never aired it was very waffly, and it went a lot of different places, and it told us that we needed to re-record it and kind of condense it. And we've just never got around to doing it. It'll happen eventually at some point.
Eventually it'll happen.
But in that,
overnight,
what I took out of that was a different ship that talked to the 2 points that Algared and Paul put forward, because I kind of realized, like, towards the end, it's like, well, let's keep the Redeemer. It does what it does, but everything that they had promised that the Redeemer was meant to do, that should go into another ship. And I called that the Anvil Reaper, and I made a little silhouette of it, and I showed Paul and Algared and what I was thinking. And it'll never happen, my thoughts, right? But the thing is, what Algared and Paul... trying to
get the ideas out of your brain.
Because you guys put a lot of ideas in there, and a lot of the points they made were really sound. The big one that I remember is the cockpit towards the ground, and essentially you're taking the Redeemer and flipping it vertically, so the module that is swapped is kind of like on the back of it rather on the belly of it, and it made a lot of sense. It really, really did, and you can see why they didn't do that. Because of the way the engines are on the Redeemer, but on a whole new ship that rejigs all that, it makes a lot more sense. And I went through, and specifically in the one I showed you, I actually ended up having a room like in the middle, and it was a 2-story room, and you could have a module at the top and the bottom, and they kind of flip out, and so you could basically do it any way you wanted. Is how I want. And I even thought about, instead of doing them vertical, I even thought about putting them side by side and stuff like that. But again, if I've done something like this, I guarantee you someone at CIG has done this 10 times over. So they would go through this with a fine-tooth comb whenever they're building a ship.
Yep. But I scrolled down and found Kirstensen's actual question. So he kind of that was his preface. Looking at the name of Intrepid and suggesting Brawler capital ship, and he says, "Would the Intrepid be the Anvil capital we have been awaiting on for years?" And yes, it could.
I think more than likely, though, like we were talking about earlier, it is more than likely that ship from the yellow curtain video. And I think, like, again, you got to look at statistics and probability, and more than likely it is a small RSI advanced starter based on so many different things. But I'll go over them very, very quickly. We know they're working on a lot of RSI ships. We know it's a small. We know that they tend to like to do small ships because they can pump them out in a year. We know it's got cargo. We know it's got a front entry ramp on the side. And it can fall under about 4 different brandings from the way it looks. But again, RSI just gets knocked to the head of the list because we know they're working on it.
Yeah, it's always a hard one to call. But when you think of that list of ships, in the past, when they did their ships, it was just icons, just drawings.
Yeah,
they look like more closer to 3D models rather than.
They do a lot of 3D mock-up now.
Yeah,
it's not, again, like if you're just doing the shell, it's fine, you know.
But it's different from just doing the sketch. So it was a step along the process.
It can be just as quick to do a 3D sketch these days as it is to do a paper sketch. And the advantage is because you have it digitally, you can just put it in and start working off it.
Yeah. So I could see that. I imagine those ones I had were the ones that at least I had gone through because these are coming. They'd already started on the work on those. So I think that's another reason why we're more likely to be that rather than a ship they didn't have up or we haven't seen. So would I like it to be a capital ship that's been promised for years or soon to be promised for years but we've never seen? Yeah. But
I think we can all state at some point there will be an Anvil capital ship. Right?
Wherever we can buy it, that's a different thing. But yeah.
Yeah, that too. We know that they're meant to take on Aegis and law, like for a whole bunch of law reasons. And I think you'd agree with me on this statement. Eventually, they want every major manufacturer to have that big capital.
Yeah.
You know, and with a lot of them, you kind of look out there now and you don't realize they're already there, you know, like the Orion, the Pioneer.
Oh.
They're there, they're just not combat.
Yeah.
But when you look at Anvil, you kind of go through their lineup
and you go, where's their
No. What I mean is they're very military focused.
Yep.
Right. But there are ones that break that as well. So you've got the Crucible, but that leans
Mhm.
towards military as well to repair. Same with the Explorer. So their capital might not be what people want it to be. It might not
Yep.
be this BFG that just blasts things away. It might be something skewed, a military skew.
I could hear the bizarre thought. The Anvil capital is actually a light carrier because most of their ships are small-ish.
It would kind of make sense to go in line with things like the Arrow and stuff.
If I remember right, Anvil has lots of the fighters rather than the capital ship. Aegis seems to have the
No,
ship.
it might
Or
be
is it the other way around?
rather than like a traditional carrier though. I'd like it to be like a drop ship, so it drops fighters. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Kind of think Battlestar Galactica. So you load in and drop out.
So for the ship that they've got, I don't think it'd work. But yeah, forever. But hey, that's for them to work out, not me.
I think it would, because you can do it with tractor beams. They just hold them up with tractor beams, and then when the pilot gets in, they just drop. And it looked like do you remember Starship Troopers? How they all kind of like detach and they.
Yep.
That would look really cool. And I'm just trying to do something different, because otherwise it's just a carrot clone, is it not? You land on the pads, that's the aircraft carrier. So how do you change it from the aircraft carrier look to something else? Well, you have them deploy in a different way. We've already got the Idris where they fly it from the internals. We've already got them laying up the pads. What's left? Deployable dropship type. That's about it. Or the entire bottom comes out and they all.
Yep.
Like
I tend to think
what's
the
the
dropping one fits with.
No, hang on. I'm trying to think of the movie.
Fury.
The Alien movie where the 5x5. That's the other one you could do.
Yep. But I tend to think, like, if you're doing a space drop or tractor beam drop, that seems to fit more with the Fury rather than any other manufacturer.
Absolutely.
Based on what we've got. So does that mean that's going to be the case? No. How many times does CIG pull one out of the hat and gone, hey, Bristol? And we've gone, wow, we didn't see that coming. They've done that a few times over the years. So, yeah.
Well, again, we've got Mirai now. So why can't you have a massive Mirai combat ship?
Yep.
There you go. But yeah. So
Citizen Ninja says, with all these ships vehicles nearing completion, do you think we'll see a new release at Stella Fortuna? No. My gut says no, mainly because we know the skins they're putting out.
Yep.
And if you Stella Fortuna tends to have that green skin. So
yeah, and the new ones this year are all Origin. So 400
and they're all ships that are out. So
yeah. Of course, the old ones as well, though, which were mainly RSI, like the ESA and the.
So you tend to find they put a new Emerald skins out, but the old ones still come back as well. So.
Well, again, it can't be worse than last year when we got the. Sorry, I'm just read something and replied to it. Some Salty Dog said, "I really hope Invictus launch week is full of surprises." Last year was the worst Invictus they've ever done, by a country mile. Fury and 2 vehicles, Lynx and. Someone remind me in chat. It was Fury, Lynx, and some other vehicle, and I can't remember.
The Storm, was it?
Might have been the announcement of the Storm. I can't remember, but someone let us know in chat. There was literally only 3 things, and that was new, and it was terrible. Yeah, that's another thing we should probably talk about too. Citizen Scott just reminded me. There is more mentions in the files of the F7A. So it looks like we might be getting an F8 like event, but for the F7A. And I think that makes a lot of sense with the prices going up of the Hornets. It's kind of on par, I think. But yeah.
Yeah. And that's not necessarily. I hate that. Sneeze right on the cusp of coming. Yeah, and I don't think that necessarily is a bad thing because, or out of the blue, because CIG did talk about when they did the FA event with Squadron 42 coming so close. They were wanting to bring out a whole lot of these kind of events to make it more real and share all the rewards that are there for Squadron 42. Hey, let's share the joy a little bit. So, yeah, I could see that. So,
Sorry, I'm just Algared can see,
Yep.
but you guys can't. I'm looking up Invictus last year, and I can't for the life of me. I just remember at the time it was 2 vehicles,
Yep.
2 vehicles in a ship, and yes, there was 2 variants of the Fury. So maybe it was 2 variants of the Fury and a Lynx.
Waffle says 2 Furies and a Lynx is all he can think of.
But still, if you've been here for any length of time, even comparing that to the following AIE, that was a super low number of stuff.
Yep.
It was a very quiet year last year.
Mind you, having said it was a quiet year, in the ships that came out last year, there were 12 that were released, or 12 new ships, because there were 12 things in the upgrade pack for the Legatus. So or 11 or 12 new ships or vehicles that came out last year, which for a quiet year was actually quite impressive.
That's because the end of the year was backloaded. That's why.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, to push that up, push the price up.
Waffle's statement. I got that. Let me have a look at this. I just don't have a way to bring it up on the screen, Waffle.
Yep.
So he went through and he grabbed all the questions and answers that people popped into the. I think he took them out.
Yeah. Thanks for the effort. Thanks for the work.
Yeah, I just got no way to bring that up on screen. Waffle, sorry, so we can't go through it. But yeah, he's basically essentially summarized the Star Citizen Live.
Yep.
We can go through that
another. A massive deal of work. We might be able to have a look at that later and do an episode on it. Who knows?
I do appreciate Waffle. I've got no way to bring it up on screen.
Release Indomitus.
Yeah, go for it.
Can you resell your ticket when something comes in between in real life?
I'm pretty sure you can turn it back into credit. And I've heard of people saying they've had to change their mind and stuff in the past, so there must be somewhere around there where you can either get your money back or you can do it.
Yeah, and I'm sure, right, I'm sure CIG, if it was something that major that happened in real life that stopped you, I'm sure CIG would help.
We're talking about CitizenCon too, just for context. I just realized, but yeah.
And I can't say that with any certainty, but just the way CIG, from my experience, have been in the past, I would expect them to want to help people. We're going for a real issue. So.
Yeah, agreed.
Xanthos, Fortuna is almost here. I want to get a Phoenix Emerald in a Fortuna pack. If I upgrade a small vehicle within that pack to LTI, does my Phoenix also become LTI?
From memory, you can only buy them outright, or am I mistaken in that?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
If you've got a pack, basically, I'm not sure how you'd upgrade something to a vehicle that has LTI. Because if it's got LTI, then the pack's got LTI. It'd have to be one of those really, really rare CCUs, and in which case I don't think so. I think it'd just be the vehicle. That's an interesting one. I've not really considered that one in the past, but I wouldn't expect it to.
Yeah. I think the other thing is, like, I would kind of stress this, and I'm a skin guy, by the way. Just remember, it's a skin, and it'll be earnable in game at some point.
Yep.
They'll have a St. Patrick's Day event. You'll be able to go around and get it. So don't go out of your way to spend extra on something that is just a skin.
But for those who do want a Phoenix, it is one other event where you can get a Phoenix.
What's better though, a skin or an LTI?
Yeah, I'd go the LTI over a skin any day. But that's just me.
Yeah. And there are other skins in the store as well.
Yeah.
So.
Oh look, and I know, even though I just said that, I know LTI is not a thing. I know it's only a minor convenience. Whereas a skin is something that you could actually put on and take off the ship. I realize that, but my gut still always says LTI over skin. So.
Yeah. If you're after a pack though, Salty Dog does mention there's a pack there you can get as well. But again, I'd be taking LTI over the skin, but that's just me.
Yeah.
And again, I think one of the reasons personally why I'm not really interested in Fortuna is I'm not the biggest fan of green. You could probably tell
I
that.
do like green.
But yeah, if you like green, then maybe it's your thing.
Yeah. Great. I've got to admit, emerald green, which is really annoying because that's what color they try to put me in, is my color.
You're a Lord of the Rings person, so I'm not surprised. All right. Chris Diane says,
Chris Diane.
now that Squadron 42 is feature complete, it means that Star Engine tools are in beta. Any estimates when Star Engine tools are released? That's a good one. I've got to sit here and think of the many moving parts that have changed since they talked about releasing the tools. They are now in partnership somewhat with Amazon, I have to assume, because they were given the license for free. What are they giving Amazon in return? What are the issues with releasing the tools? Because if you release the tools, exploiters can pick them up too. Yeah, I think that's really what I would say be a reassessment level.
Yeah, I'd be looking at, if I was in a position where I could sell off my tools or license people to be able to use my tools, I'd certainly do it after my game was out on the market.
Yeah,
and had been out for a little bit.
And I'd probably limit it to commercial partners. Though they were released to people that earn the game, I'm going to be honest with you, that's when mods and that come around, and I don't. Again, I think most of the mods are going to be for Star Citizen, not for Squadron 42.
Yeah.
But I also have to sit there and look at how the landscape has changed in the last, say, 10 years. You'd be opening up yourself to so many exploiters right now. We even have them in game right now. And I think if you polled the community now and said, do you want us to release this tool so you can make your own shit? Or would you rather us keep it closer to the chest so there is less exploits? And I think 90% of people would say, keep it close. Well, we can do a poll.
Yeah.
Well, let's do a poll. Let's find out.
Yeah, why not do a poll? Yeah. And I get it. You could sell, you could sell off the tools or sell off the rights to be able to use the tools and get extra funding. I don't see them doing that. So that to me also puts pay to any of those horrid rumors we've been hearing. So yeah, I don't think they're going to do that. It's not in their best interest, I don't think.
Yeah, I think the ground has changed in the last while, so we'll see.
The other thing in terms of that is when I used to read the monthly reports, I used to think that the Squadron 42 one was always just loaded, like heaps and heaps and heaps of content that they were working on. And then you'd see bits in the PU. This month was the first month that I can really recall where the PU monthly report was bigger than the Squadron 42 monthly report. There are a few things in the monthly report for Squadron 42, which we actually saw in the PU one anyway. But the Squadron 42 monthly report seems significantly empty in comparison. And it's all polishing. It's all finishing off polishing type comments to me. So they always put reports out a week earlier to those who subscribe in a letter, and then they go live the following week. So the Squadron 42 monthly report should be out sometime next week. But yeah, that was my impression. It seemed a lot less filled with stuff.
Yeah.
Which to me also just said they're finishing it off. It is, it's.
So I'm essentially looking at it almost straight off the bat. It's like what I was saying. 90% of people say no tools, no exploits. We've got a 50-50 split on Twitch, but we've only got 2 votes so far. But it's now Now I've got 3, so it's moving. Yeah, so it's like I thought. Like I'm mods are great and all, and they do add some stuff, but it's what you gain in response. And I think you would lose more of the main game than you would gain. And you're also opening CIG to legal problems. So someone comes out and makes a Dark Forces or Star Wars mod or something like that. They got to move to close it down. and play the bad guy, and then you got more public. Oh, I really enjoy that. It's better than your main game. Piss off. Blah blah blah. You know, all that type of thing. So I don't know. My brain goes to get rid of the exploits, and I think most people would lean that way. Yeah.
It looks like 92 or 94% on on YouTube
and 86 on Twitch. So yeah,
so
that's just initial. So we'll let that run for a minute. Someone keep an eye on the Twitch one for me because I often miss it and it disappears and I can't get it back. Where the YouTube one stays up. So yeah, if someone can keep an eye on that for me, I'd appreciate it. Just if I ask, just drop the stat. Right, next question. What do we have to use?
I'm going to pull up because you mentioned it. I'm going to pull up Citizen Scott's comment or question. He says, "I don't get how mods or what mods have to do with exploits." So
the tools that you use to make mods kind of open the game files, so to speak, and open areas of the game so they can make the game, right? In doing that, though, the same files that you open to allow you to expand the game into mods also allow the different people to go in and find exports and loopholes. So they're trying to find things, right? And it just opens it up to more exploitation, and you get weird things like people being able to teleport across the universe and shit like that, right? So that's what we don't want. And we've already got things like that in game already where someone will go along and they can fire a million bullets a second and you just explode. We've seen those videos on YouTube, as I'm sure you have, Citizen Scott.
Yeah, so and his follow-up statement was no mod tools are out now, and yet we're still seeing exploits.
And that's what I'm saying. So basically it makes it easier. So do you want to do you want to have mods but hand the tools to make even more exploits? And my and someone else said this as well, when you open mods, you've got to keep supporting the mods as well. So they've got to pay for that as well, where if you don't have the mods and I don't know, my path leads to what is easier for CIG and what gives us less exploits, and we just get that base game because that's what we've all paid for. And I think you are falling into a niche with mods there. If they can how find that way, because the other thing is you need Amazon servers to run the multiplayer. So as soon as you go into that, what is your server going to be, Algared, when you run a local machine? Is it going to be a moon? Like you literally have you and your friends on a moon and that's it? And again, I'm sure there are going to be people that just want to go out and have their little single player experience and mine in a prospector on a completely empty server. Yeah, I can totally see there's people doing that. But by the same token, the ability to explore this advanced universe, and we know exploring was one of the most upvoted professions, you're only going to get that on Amazon servers. With the server meshing and all that. You're not going to get that on a local machine. But yeah.
And if it's not a local machine, what exploring are you doing?
Yeah. Well, you're exploring the moon. You know?
Yeah.
And every time you want to go somewhere else, you would have to load up a different... there would be load screens. There would just have to be. Because they're just not at the same computation that a Amazon server is at. And the only other way to do it would be literally to stream in and stream out, and you'd have to have those long flight times. Yeah.
Yep. All right, next question is from Mark C 27. And they start off by saying thanks. Sorry. Oh, they finish off by saying thanks for answering the question about the Apollo. But their question is, do you think that...
I'm just going to interrupt you. So the poll just finished on Twitch at 80% with 15 votes and 94% on YouTube. Actually,
with 18 votes.
Yep, I'll just end that and then it'll actually bring up the stats in a second. There you go. So 18 votes, 94%. So that's... I think we can say the no's have it. So yeah.
Yeah. So Mark C27 or Mark C these 7 or whatever it is. There's thanks for answering the Apollo question, but then they asked, do you think that 3.23 will be delayed? Strange that PTU has or hasn't started. Well, I just went and opened up my files to double check. PTU is 3.23.
So I just want to put this out there. We know they said it's going to come out in April. You've got all of April, right? Because it's only going to come out on the last day. I'm not saying it will, but it's got to come out on the last day. And you've got all of March. So we've still got 21 days in March. So that's 50 days.
Yeah, at most. And, it's on PTU. 3.23. I actually just checked the version that was on PTU, just to make sure. But
so
it's on PTU. It has started on there.
Have you had a chance to get into Test Avocado yet?
No.
Might want to do that because apparently they've put the jump point stuff in.
Yeah, I'm keen to do that. It's just real life is a bitch sometimes, and having had my long service leave approved, it does mean I've got a whole pile of work I've got to crunch into.
I've just figured out how to get you to fix your microphone.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a free cricket emoji and put it free on Twitch and free on YouTube, and people can just spam the shit out of it until you shut the fuck up and fix your microphone. I'll force you into a submission. Anyway, no, it's really loud, by the way, right now. I don't know what they're doing, but they're making babies or something in the background.
I can't help it. Sorry.
Yep. Next question.
They're planning the overthrow because I'm gassing them at the moment.
Right, so Lady Space Patrol says, I'm sure you've been asked before, but do you anticipate a wipe being necessary for 3.23? If so, what about 3.23? Do you think it warrants a wipe?
I think that warrants a wipe.
I think the main one and the only one I can really think of is the rebalancing of the economy.
Yep.
And that would allow them to kind of push people out to go test that.
And I think when they want to test things on the economy, or they want to start the economy fresh, that's when they'll do a wipe. And I always take the view, while we're in alpha, while we're in beta, expect a wipe whenever there's a patch. If you don't get one, bonus. But if you do get one, that's life. Because they won't be,
North End Trooper was just saying about the jump points. Apparently they're on rails at the moment. You don't have any control. So it's literally just, it's a loading screen because you're just loading along the line. So hopefully that improves in time. That'll be sweet.
You remember what landing on a planet was originally. So.
Well, it sounds like it's like what you and I have been saying all along, Algared, that Star Citizen was just this placeholder, like pretty lights to keep us distracted. And it was more hollow than we realized. Like if they've got to go back and actually get jump points to work, like physically get them to work, that means they never worked on them. They worked on the visuals of them, but they never worked on the actual mechanics and gameplay. Yeah. Well, at least not for SC, maybe for Squadron. But again, in Squadron, would you be flying the ship? Or would you just be on the ship and it's a load screen?
Yep.
So.
Well, you'll remember the very first landing zones. Connie landing at Area 18. That was on rails. And even in that one, you could get up and walk around your ship still. So my gut would say at a big ladder where, if it's on rails, you're still able to get up and walk around your ship. But never say never.
Right.
Lady Space Patrol has another question.
Yep. Do you think the current medical loop is sufficient? If not, what would you like to see from medical? No, I don't think it's sufficient. Yeah. I don't think any of the gameplay loops are sufficient. Let's be honest. They, like I just
said,
maybe
mining at the moment.
No, none of them are sufficient because they really haven't been working on this game.
And I did see in the monthly report something about mining components. They were doing something with mining tools. So again, still not considered sufficient by them. No, and as you said, healing is just medical gameplay is just in its starting things. We don't have any of the, I can remember them having a handheld, defibrillator type tool that they were going to sell or have available for medical. We don't even have that. We don't have those tools. We don't have the bigger stuff.
Well, the medical multi-tool doesn't even work in game. We've got 3 tiers of beds. What are the primary differences between these beds? Like, it's not going to be just you press a button and like it is now and they heal you. I think it would literally, and I'll just put it in operations terms, be different types of operations. Like if you're in a tier 1 bed, you're doing some internal stuff. Like, is it like you remember the old board game Operation where boy don't want to buzz and hit the sides? Or is it, what's the multiple mini games? What is the diagnosis? How do I find out what is wrong with this person? And then like, what's the skill level or knowledge there? Like what, it's a, integral blah blah blah, all those Latin words. I can't talk like a doctor, but you know what I mean. And then you go, oh, that's this, and so you got to know what part of the body is broken, or you know, or how do you fix it? What is it a medical remedy? Is it a physical remedy? Like, do I have to bind and kind of put it in a cast or something like that? Or do I have to put weights on it, like on the end of their legs so it straightens their bones and stuff like that? It's how complicated do they want to make it? Do they want to make it? Now, I don't think they'll go truly 100% realistic, but I think they'll gamify it, and I think it will be quite deep. I really do, because you can look at it on so many different levels. Like, if you look at, I kind of look at it a little bit like Fifth Element. So in Fifth Element, how they rebuilt people, like, you know, the printing of the bones and stuff like that. So you could actually, and it's going to sound really weird, but you know how you 3D print the wings with the crucible and the built base build?
They could reprint the body.
Exactly.
I can remember from 2014, 2015, a 10th chairman where they talked about the medical gameplay. And you could have a point where if you didn't know how to do your medicine right, you could stuff it up. And you say you could go to someone, and if they didn't do it right, you might end up with it wasn't as good as it could have been. A bit like crafting in games where, you know, you could...
But that goes multiple ways too. Like, so let's just take your arm as an example, what you're saying. Like we know they've got different prosthetic arms and stuff like that. So do you, what do they have? How bad is it? Is it easier to... So say it's some kind of bacterial, alien, fungal thing that's gone through your arm. Do they take all the time to take it out and then rebuild it with a new one, or do they just lob it off and put a new one on? And do they put a new arm on, or do they put a new cybernet? You see where I'm going with this? It's actually really good.
And depending on your skill or your ability, could
exactly,
you know, you're doing the operation, you stuff the operation.
Not only that,
better chop off the arm.
The patient's insurance options, the patient's money. Can't afford a whole new organic one. Got to give him the Drake little clip one. You know, like whatever.
And we know that who's the character in Levski with the leg. One of the old mission givers who had the mechanical leg, the cybernetic leg. They were, one of the reasons they were down the darker side was because, you know, they'd got injured. If I remember correctly, they got injured at work, and the insurance didn't cover a proper regret, so they just had to go the mechanical version. So those types of things are all there.
And I'm sure there'll be times where they just rebuild your whole character, give you a whole new body. You know, so it's as deep as they want it to go, really. And you got to remember, it's a simplified system. When you've got the ability to essentially clone a whole new body, changes everything.
And then you've also got tied into that the trauma echo, or the echo trauma, or whatever they call it, where the part is too damaged and your brain is saying, yeah, that's absolutely smashed. It doesn't allow it to regrow, even in the
now you're going into things that were really interesting, like you get a limb or an arm replaced. What are the benefits and drawbacks to each type? So, for example, you get an organic one, and it just like it's a little slower for a couple of days as it gets back to it, or do you get a metal one and it's really good at stopping things, but it's got a delay or something like that? Do you know what I mean? Like, you could start to give, like, you know, the difference between Drake and Origin and stuff like that. So you can literally start doing that to different types of limbs. So pros and cons, essentially. You know, like, oh, I can now, like in Will Smith in iRobot, where he had the, you know, he had the, like, he could just stop bullets and beat the shit out of people with one arm, but the other arm did nothing. Similar thing to that. Like, well, what are the you suddenly get a massive benefit where you can lift a truck, but you can't touch. You know, you go to touch a glass and you just break it because you're too strong. So they're the little cool gameplay emergent things they could put in, and it would make it really interesting. You know, my wife won't let me touch her with her right arm anymore because anytime I do it, I leave bruises on her. So I'm gonna use my real hand. You know, and that's a story side that comes out of it. So you can see how they could start to get all these really cool little intricacies into it. I'm just trying to put that in people's heads so they can start to think about the cool.
So basically, no. In answer to the question, medical gameplay is nowhere near where it wants to be.
And I think, and when I say that about all professions, I am not kidding. I mean that about everything, right?
Yep.
We know that they have talked about underground mining as an example, and you'll hear me and Algared have brought that up so many times over the years, and they reconfirmed it only, I think it was maybe 2 years ago now or less, that was still a thing. which basically means the prospector is going to be the overground miner, because they did also state that they've taken the underground mining part away from that, which means they've kind of split them. And they're probably going to make another series of ships now that are in the vein of the Starfarer. That is a gas collector, believe it or not. We do have a gas collector in game, the Starfarer. So we'd have to logically expect the other 3 ships in that lineup will be gas collectors, right? So, yeah, full circle. There's so much gameplay we haven't seen. What's the other one you and I talk about? Agriculture. You've got the biopods on the Endeavour. Where are all the other biopod ships? We've got climate-controlled cargo on the 400i. Where are all the other cargo ships like that? We don't have any hunting ships. We don't, food's going to come into this, different resources. It just goes on and on and on. And if we end up having like actual herds of live animals, farming with animals could be a thing. But then again, you need AI for that. And AI for a plant there is no AI for a plant. It just sits there, right? So there's a massive benefit to having plants where animals, I think animals are more likely to go to a one-off. Like, and if you look at the, what's the big space crab thing? It's the one big one and a couple of little dumb babies. Because again, the AI just focuses on the one and makes that the really smart thing. You can't have multiple smart things because it's too taxing on the system. So, for example, the one I gave was a herd of Giselle. They'd kind of be like sheep where they kind of follow each other. So really it's one AI, but you're just lowering its health by killing them off. So it's a herd AI rather than a single AI. So we may get there one day, but a herd AI is going to be a lot harder for them to pull off than a one-off. All right. I hope to put some thoughts up there anyway.
All right. Soulscream78 says, will I have a chance at a Polaris CCU before release? Currently, Carrack.
If it doesn't come...
Carrack, will I get a chance for a Polaris?
If it doesn't come in Invictus, but if you really want one, man, there are people out there on the grey market. There are people that will sell you a CU.
Yep.
Reach out to me and Algared. We can put you in contact with some people if you really want one. And in fact, you'll get it cheaper than CIG sells it for. I'll give you that right now. About half price. Put it that way.
Yep. Artemis 2GM. I don't blame you if you skip this question. Well,
right.
We're not.
Let's skip it.
But do you think Sweet Baby Inc. will have influence on Star Citizen's development narrative?
We actually don't usually talk about politics, religion, and science and all those type of things that create argument, but I will just say this, and I'm going to make it very short and sweet, and Algared, you know what I'm about to say. This game is funded in a different way to other games, so they don't need any of that stuff. If this game was to change its stance, I think you would find a max exodus would occur, and they would have a lot of legal repercussions. So I think at the end of the day, they're going to remain like Switzerland and stay neutral. I'll leave it at that.
Yep. Sounds good to me. Machiavelli says, he just says I'd skip that question. Too bad we didn't skip it. Arcane DGR says, will we see a simulcast CitizenCons in Sydney, LA? Will we see simulcast ones that are in Sydney, LA, Manchester, and Berlin? I could see them doing LA, Manchester, and Berlin because they've got, or I'd say Frankfurt because they've got studios there. I could see them doing.
So does he mean like eventually they're doing CitizenCons in multiple countries at exactly the same time?
Yep.
No.
I'm gathering that. I could see them doing them at a place that we've got studios.
I would like them, and again, I would look to the bar citizen community. I would like them when they, and I think they could already do this, when they have a CitizenCon, wherever it is, they are echoing them in the the places. So you have an Austin bar citizen. And they just
streaming
they
the
put it up
live.
Yeah, they put it up on the big screen and just all watch it
together. And even cross live to those bar citizens.
Absolutely.
And a bit like when they're doing that studio talk where we're talking to people, cut to the bar citizen and do so. And it might mean, hey, you send one staff member to each of those key main bar citizens so that they control the narrative of the introduction, whatever. But yeah, why not? Anything's possible.
Do you know, I'm just looking at the numbers, Algared, and for the first time ever, we might actually get Twitch to pass the number of YouTube. We'll see what happens. Because I didn't advertise YouTube today, I think it's had an effect. Yeah, so we're almost at 50-50. This is a first. So yeah. All right.
Yep. don't advertise YouTube and
yeah. All right.
the
So
numbers are
we're about halfway through the
Squadron.
show right now, and we're down to the last 6 or so questions. So if you've got more questions, please get them in because we cut this off when it ends. So if we get to the end, we're going to cut it off. But yeah, we're down to the last 6 questions. I know there's not a lot of people here today, so that's why the question's a little bit down, and I blame myself entirely for that. So I do apologize.
That's okay.
I fell asleep.
Yeah, I know you're human.
Yeah.
Millions don't believe it, but it's true. That's evidence. But I think one of the things is that the advantages it does when there's a lot of questions. I don't know about you, but I always feel that there's that inkling at the back of my mind saying, "Oh, we want to get through them." So you tend to speed things up a little bit more. But when there's not many questions, you feel more free to delve a little deeper. At least I do. DeJocko has a question. Thoughts on owning multiples of the same ship? I currently own 2 of each of a Polaris, Perseus, and Galaxy. I did for claim times and different modules on the Galaxy, but have second thoughts.
I could look at certain ships. I think you could too, Algared. Like the one I always go to is the Endeavour. Like that's got like 4 different ones just to use all the modules. So, yep.
Indeed.
I could see it with any ship with modules. It kind of goes down. So let's look at the Polaris, no modules, but it is a bigger ship. But then you kind of assume that you're in an org and one of those may have a Polaris. So do you need a second one? And also like claim times, yeah, they may be big, but at the end of the day, someone in your org should generally, if it's a bigger ship, would have it. And it also depends how much you're in that to profession. Like if your thing is mining, I could understand you having 3 prospectors. You know, like if you're a really bad pilot, obviously, but again, the claim time for a prospector is going to be a lot lower. So it's this weird balancing act, right? Like, is this the ship that you absolutely love to death? And I think everyone, let's be honest, you couldn't really say that right now. There's not enough gameplay on any ship to literally go, that ship is amazing over this other ship. You could probably do it on looks, but let's be honest, looks are not everything. They are almost nothing, really. When you're talking about a game, and this is one of the reasons why I sometimes get annoyed at people. Like, we have people that come along and they're role players, and they won't buy a Drake ship, or they won't buy an Aegis ship. And it just drives me crazy, because there's so few ships that I don't think you can do that yet. Algared's a lot more understanding with those people, and I generally let him deal with them, because
he gets frustrated. He wants to pull his hair out. And I'm like, yeah, it's okay. And I see where you're coming from. Next is going, no.
I just walk away. I'm like, you are literally describing this ship, but you want it to be made by this manufacturer. Well, you're pie in the sky, like, you know. So yeah,
it's and you know you've got that whole taste aspect and stuff. You know, it just
it's great to buy a ship based on how it looks, right? Because there's a cool if you got it, but I think fundamentally any ship you should be buying, you should be trying to think about the gameplay, because at the end of the day, that is that is majority of what you're going to be doing with that ship, right?
Yeah, look, I can remember Ben saying on the lunchtime streams, and even at other times, look at what the ship, the summary of what the ship does, rather than worrying about the stats on the ship at the moment. So we'll make sure the ship does what it claims to can do, and it's balanced in terms of what it should do. Against everything else. But having the ships done to their role, that's the key thing. I think there's very few ships where the role has changed. I think the only one that really sticks out to me that had its role changed in any way is the Constellation, which years ago used to be the space superiority fighter. Is the way it came up.
I think the one slight exception to that is manufacturer change. Yeah. So Aegis Terrapin became Anvil Terrapin.
Yeah. And little things like that. But the role of a ship hasn't changed.
No, I'm just trying to think of little spins on that. So the other one I think of is like the Cutlass to the Buccaneer. And I've even said that myself. What with the Phoenix? I think the Phoenix should be a whole different ship. It's
I know you argue that, and I could see an argument for it. So in terms of the question about owning 2 ships, there are several factors that come in, especially for the larger ships. One, the claim times. So claim times are a significant thing, certainly for the bigger ships. 2, being able, especially for an org, being able to position those capital ships in different locations so that the org can very quickly access those or access the resources in that area. 3, what's your gameplay loop? Does it help? Is it modular? Like an endeavor, there's easily a valid reason to have 2 or 3 endeavors just because there's so many parts, and the change over time, I imagine, is going to be longer. And so having one set up for mining or agriculture, and one set up for exploration, and one set up for whatever.
Even going back to the 3 prospectors, you could have them set up for different types of rocks and stuff. So it really depends on the player. Like there's too many moving parts to say no, don't get multiple ships. I think because there's so many moving parts, though, I lean towards more get one of everything. And there's nothing to say that you can't move stuff around later.
And the other factor that does come into that equation is, okay, I've got 2 of everything at the moment, but there's this new one come out and I really want it, but I can't afford it. So at that point, you start culling the...
The other one I go towards Algared, like using the prospector example, the earn down economy too. Why not just get one Orion and earn down to multiple prospectors or multiple moles or whatever? Because you realistically, unless you're like a super org, you're not going to want multiple Orion. Well, I look at our org as an example, Algared. There are so many ships in there that we can scatter them around all over the place. We're not going to need to drag the Kraken or something like that 5 systems over because so many people have one.
We've got so many.
So, I assume it's the same in most other orgs. Again, if you're playing with a smaller team, again, then you need a smaller ship, right? And no real big ship is going to be an island. They are going to have support craft and things like that. And that's one of the reasons why me and Algorithms, every time we talk about a capital, we go, you should earn a Crucible. Because if things go bad, you're going to be at someone's behest to get it out of there. And if you got your own Crucible, at least you can get it out of there.
Now, he is talking large ships. So, the Jocko is saying, 2 Polaris, 2 Perseus, 2 Galaxy. So... Yeah, there's so many things that tie in with that.
So my brain goes, why don't you have some other ships around that size? Like, why don't you have a Nautilus or Hammerhead? Why don't you have an Odyssey? Like, believe it or not, the Odyssey is essentially a Corvette. It is very similar in size and scope to what a Polaris does. It is essentially the capital Carrack. It's also.
I remember being surprised. I kept thinking they were really the same size of ship, and you pulled them up one day and showed me, and I thought, oh, great, it's significantly bigger. And my brain kind of had it there as being better because I knew, but just the hangar itself could take a big, significantly larger ship than the Carrack could, which meant it had to be bigger. But my brain was just always thinking it is just a Carrack-sized ship.
Well, that's you just hit on something there that's really important. Because we are looking at all these JPEGs that are essentially the same size, they almost look like they're the same size ships. And it's not until you actually get into a scale, like something like Hangar Link or something like that, and you can basically put them side by side, and you kind of go, holy shit, this is a way bigger ship. And it's one of the things I tried to point out with the Airastro, because it was I think we did a poll and it was like 57% of people said the Airastro is a better ship. Yet you go, and by the way, this is when there were like 11% difference, but there were days where it was literally exactly the same price, right? And if you actually look at it as an exactly the same price proposition, it's 6 times smaller than the Orion. There's no way it's worth the same price.
It's the same price or 10% cheaper. Or more expensive? Why would you go an Airastro over an Orion?
If it was 10% bigger, then I could go, yeah, take your pick. But when it's 6 times the size...
Yeah. And that means the earning potential is significantly increased.
And the only positive that I would hear back from people that would kind of push back was like, but it can go down to planet. Yeah, but again, there's a drawback to every ship in the game. So obviously it's 6 times smaller. What would you take, Algared? 6 times smaller? Or the ability that's 6 times larger, but it can't go down the ground? It's still going to find what it needs, but it's only in space. I mean, it is a space game after all. Like, so it just means you're going to asteroid belts and you're going to nebulas and things like that. So yeah, you don't get to explore the ground. But by the same token, you can use that ship to very quickly earn an Airastro, and then it's totally null and void. You can't take an Airastro and very easily earn an Orion.
Because the prices are going to be so much higher.
Yeah.
But I know there are people who will choose that because they want the grind and they want to earn that in game, and that's okay. There's no problem with
absolutely.
it.
That's prerogative, but we've got to be that logical little conscience on your shoulder, stating the hard
especially when
facts.
someone says, "I really want this ship, I can't afford it," and you go, "Well, actually, you can."
Like, for example,
and then they might say, "Well, I want to earn it," and that's a totally different thing. But when they say, "I want the ship, I can't afford it,"
yeah. So in Twitch, Lemming's saying, "I think the Orion will be pretty boring." Yeah, it might be more boring because you're not going down to planets, and I reckon there probably may be some more interesting points of interest. But I don't think you're going to make anywhere near as much money on an Arastra. Right? They're almost exactly the same crew requirements. So you tell me what makes more sense. 5 people on something that's 6 times smaller, that'll make 6 times less money? Or the 1 person more and all of a sudden it makes... Does that mean it makes 6 times as much money?
Well, it's a bit like the comparison between the Vulture and the Reclaimer.
We just don't know. There's a few moving parts, and all we can do is use logic at the moment and look at other games, right? And when you look at other games, the bigger it goes up, the higher you go up, the more powerful you are. If you are more powerful, let's take World of Warcraft. Level 60 person goes back to a level 20 zone, they can just smash everything like it's tissue paper, right? Same logic. You take an Orion, you're going to make more money. It's just that simple. You could even go back to a safer zone and take all those that dangers out of it. And it's still going to get more because it's a bigger ship, bigger risks, bigger rewards. We're not saying anything you don't know. We're just saying things you kind of don't want to hear because it tells you, I really shouldn't be buying this. Just buying this other thing. And that's why so many people push back on us. But like Algared says, we don't always follow our own rules. The ships I own that don't follow that rule. So you do what you want to do. But again, as I said, we're just being a conscience. We're trying to tell you the best practices to go by. You don't have to follow them. Feel free to break them. We're just trying to protect you from the mistakes that we've made along the way.
Yep. Because we didn't follow those rules. Yeah. Carsten Christensen says, question, if the Anvil is a light carrier, who would build the battleship? 300 meter long Perseus. I think RSI has built one.
RSI's built most of them because they've been around the longest.
There is certainly the Retribution is the Dreadnought, a battleship Dreadnought, that combined effort from multiple.
I would say, though, I would have liked
I think that is also a one-off.
I would have liked to have seen one of the bigger ones. So, you got like the Bengal, the Pegasus, and the Retribution. They're all RSI. I think one of those should have been Aegis. Just one.
Well, Retribution is a mix.
Right.
That's all the manufacturers came because it's such a big ship, from memory. Yeah. But the Bengals are RSI, and the Pegasus was RSI. But yeah, would have been nice to see it, the Pegasus being from someone else, just to mix it up a little.
Yeah.
But yeah, Artemis 2GM. What do you think of the gutted out MSR cargo hauler? No data servers, cringe tunnels, but just maximum use of space and speed.
I think the normal MSR needs that treatment. It's pretty obvious. The MSR, if you go look back at the original concepts of the MSR, it was essentially a medium ship that grew to a large. And the way it was concepted and kind of promised was these vents that you could go around, and it was just all simplified and chucked under the ship. And it's just kind of made the ship a little bit ugly. Now, I'm not worried so much about the size because obviously they've replaced it with the Spirit. But it was kind of not what was originally promised, and there are so many things that ship just missed the mark on. Now, I don't know how many people was working on it, but there is clearly massive oversights, and the ones that come to mind for me,
I forgot to put the extra.
The ones that come to mind to me are things like the components at the back,
Yep.
one door in and out, and then little tiny things that don't seem like they're very important, but they're complete lack of windows. And the one that really got me was the sunroof, because I just love the whole idea of sitting in that little bar area and just sitting up and gazing at the stars. Now, that sounds stupid to a lot of people, but I don't know why. It just spoke to me. And then when it wasn't there, I was disappointed.
Yep. Yeah, no. And like you're saying, that the idea that the one entrance, I know both have two, and someone said, "Oh, where's the second entrance?" And I went, "Oh, we forgot it." It was that type of thing.
Yeah. So that's due for a rework. They have actually kind of mentioned that.
But
the one I kind of go back to though is the one that was mentioned in lore, which is the racing variant.
Yeah.
Now either they give that to the Mercury Starliner or they carry it onto the Spirit. And I think more than likely, seeing that the Zeus ST is a thing, it's probably more likely going to go to the Spirit.
Yeah, well, given that the MSR is kind of the Millennium Falcon of Star Citizen, I'd expect there to be a fast racing style that you could use.
Yep.
I get why the tunnels didn't end up being the crawl spaces, because at that time they needed them in crouch spaces just for AI and character maneuver through the ship without getting caught up on geometry. I would have loved to have seen the components more spread out to make those tunnels actually have more valid reason. So yeah, I think it does need. I think a ship that does need a major rework. And but if you take everything out and just turn it into a cargo hauler, isn't that just a glorified Taurus?
Well, let me put it in a different way. I'm kind of sitting here now going, if they do variants for the Starliner, they could also do it for the Corsair. They could do it for a few of them, and it would be an interesting way to kind of feel them out. And again, go into the areas. So let's look at the Corsair. That's an easier one to do, right?
Luxury Corsair.
An actual proper exploration variant that really hones in on the exploration, giving it longer range and stuff like that, and other flight characteristics. And then the one that runs into the guns, and it just becomes this beast of a gunboat. I can see both those variants very easily. And then the one we have now is right in the middle. So one that essentially goes towards the Aquila, and then one that essentially goes towards the Redeemer. And it's the same with the MSR. One that leads way into the data running, and then one that leads into the cargo or racing.
And I think that's probably one of the problems with the Corsair, because I know that the Corsair design document was, okay, it's Drake, so it's got to be upgunned. But they tried, but in the design, it was, it's still got to have the exploration aspect. It's still got to have those tools. And it's got to sit between the Aquila and the, I think they said Odyssey at the time. That was 600i, sorry, it's somewhere around that. But it had to fit in between those two ships in terms of its abilities. And everything they talked about when they were talking about design was not the combat, but it was the speed and the exploration aspect.
The problem with the
so they tried to do that. I think they may have missed the boat a little bit, possibly.
Yeah, they're trying to do too many things, right? So essentially, like the visualization, to try and give you a visualization, it's almost like they took a windmill, put it on a trolley, strapped a whole bunch of like AK-47s and, and then just spat it and it just lets it shoot. There is just so much wings and surface area on that ship. It just does not lean itself to combat. Now, to put it on the other aspects, the other two ships that it's sitting either side of it, you've got the Connie, Andromeda, and you've got the Redeemer. They are both slimmer, sleeker, and don't have bits that fly off. Why the hell would you...
Even if you look at the
only reason you've got to pick the Corsair at the moment is all the guns are on the pilot. That's not always going to be the case. So...
when you look at the ships either side of it as an exploration ship, you've got the Connie, and you've got the 600i. And you look at their weapon loadouts, then you can see that the weapon loadout is closer to I suppose, a 600i in terms of the size of the weapons. And yet, so you can
already see though you can already see how a Corsair variant could go though. Like you're stripping the weapons off, and you are putting sensors and shit on all those wings, and it makes so much more sense because they need that surface area, and aerodynamics come in. You put better long distance range thrusters and engines on it, so it works better in atmosphere and stuff like that. I can see a Corsair variant, and the Explorer variant seems way cooler if you can just take some of the guns off it. But guess what? We don't really have many Explorers from Drake. Like you go back and look at it, like the only other ones that kind of fall into that are the Cutter series, and they don't they're very low end. They're very meh, like they could go either way. There's no real Explorer. There's
no real
Drake.
Dedicated Explorer, and it would be nice to see, like, the Connie Aquila, which when they're talking the Corsair, they were comparing it to not an Andromeda, but in the design docs, it was Aquila they were comparing it to, and a 600i.
Got to bring.
Connie Aquila loses a turret for extra scanners.
Yep.
For its science certificate.
So what are you going to lose on that? Yeah.
What does the Corsair you lose?
It's got to be weapons. It has to be.
It has to have that. You want it to have more of that scientific aspect. At the moment, it feels more like an Andromeda rather than a Aquila.
And you probably have to give up cargo too, to be honest with you. Like to put some other components in the back area. Yeah, so then all of a sudden you can't take a vehicle.
Like at the moment, the Aquila has the same cargo capacity as an Andromeda. I actually think it needs to be more like a Phoenix with a deck, all those components, and then that reduces the cargo. So yeah, I agree. But
go back to the MSR as well. Like that's a little already off tilt as well. So like where the Corsair is going in exploration, which is a non-Drake thing, the MSR is doing the same thing. It's going into data running. It's not a real kind of staple of Crusader, and like how you have gripes with the Ares and all the guns and stuff not being one, I would argue data running's not in their field either. They are, well, it is a little bit because they're really into cargo and transportation. They're a little bit like Argo in that turn of phrase, but data, I guess data is cargo if I really think about it. But like, what other manufacturers are you going to check in there? The only other one we have is the Raven and the Herald, and I would argue that if you were looking at a cargo Drake, I would say hacking / data would be their bread and butter type of thing, because it takes up very little space and it's worth a lot of money.
The big relay station we've got in Squadron 42 is actually I think it's the Aceto company, which also has the name, but they're actually a company that deals with the transfer of data between systems. That's what that big relay station is functioning for. Why don't they have more? Why don't they have a ship or a collab with a company that's got all their equipment on to do that,
or at least a ship that has their computer servers on it or something?
So one that's got their equipment on to do that type of stuff. We don't have that type of stuff, but that's an area where we could see another manufacturer coming in rather than just sticking to the same number.
Again, I think we're going to see a lot more collabs going forward. Like one of the ones we talked about with the medical Ursa was like Cure Life and stuff like that. So they're working with RSI and it's got Cure Life components and stuff like that. That makes more sense to me. Again, leaning into the Kruger type of mentality, so where it's a smaller manufacturer that is assisting a bigger one. And I think that's what we kind of need to see more of, rather than just constantly pumping out new manufacturers. Yeah, if we need them, awesome. But if we can work with one we've already got, there is such thing as bloat or lore bloat. And I think we are at a very big point of lore already.
And having, I've got my complaints about Crusader, right? I hate the way they pivoted and changed. Even in lore, they're even right at the beginning of the lore where they say, they bought Crusader and they've got all these problems. Right at the end, the lore team would put in, the questions are, will they be able to pivot and change to deal with these new problems? Which opens the door for them to having the Ares and the other stuff. I don't like it, but it's not. I can't argue it's absolutely and utterly anti-law or anti that company. It's just that company going forward. So. And I think it's the same with everything. But we do have a lot of law, and the law has always been done with, that idea of a 12-inch brush, so that builders can actually fill in the gaps and have a bit of flavour. If you zero in and you say this is what it is, boom, full stop, you hamper the creativity of anyone else working on it. And so, as a law team, the skill for them is to give the information, but make it so wide that you can actually put the flavours in. And I tend to think they've done a pretty good job, but anyway, so Salty Dog.
Yep. What do you
guys think? Go on.
What do you guys think of a model year version or just updating a ship, IG F7C versus F7C Mark II? So they did talk about this previously with they gave an example of the old Super Hornet and the new Super Hornet.
Yep.
And I think it's just a way to kind of like how you get a different model of a car, it's going to, over time, it's going to be cool. But my biggest concern with this approach is them updating the older models.
Yep.
So, like in game right now, if they don't work on something, it breaks. So,
yep.
essentially, if you think about it, you might, and I'm just going to put in a turn of phrase, right, that makes sense. So say you got 20 ships, and then you bring out new revisions of all 20 ships, you've got 40 ships. And then a couple of years later, you do it again, and you've got 60 ships. So you're actually essentially increasing your workload as time goes by. And I just wonder how much the older ships are going to suffer, because they're obviously going to preferentiate the new ones.
Yeah. I would expect, and I know Chris talked about the idea of having down the track, you know, a 2948 Aurora, a 2950, a 2060 Aurora. I would expect as time goes on, they'll do that. I don't think we'll get that until after launch. And I could see as time goes on, those older ships, you know, getting the parts for them is significantly hard. So, you know, we take this out, we can't repair it. I'm not insuring that ship because we can't, you know, rebuild it. And so they become either the museum pieces or you're trading them in to get the new ship. Because,
and obviously
they'll be significantly outclassed.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The outclass thing, I think in most cases, this just sounds like money raising, because they talked about it, how you could buy a CCU from one to the other. Right, cool.
Yep.
Right, so you're charging me X dollars for an upgrade. Fair enough. But I think that's all it is at the end of the day, because I can't see a need why you would, like, other than you said, like a museum piece or something that sits around in your hangar. But at the end of the day, if you just get the upgrade, why can't you just give people the option to pull those out? Why remove it completely from them? Just let them have the old chip and the new one, you know. And charge them.
And I think that's the idea as well.
Yeah, I don't think you should, like, if I upgrade my ship from one to the other, I lose the ability to go to the old one. I just think you should give them the old one and the new one. And if I come in 10 years later and I just buy the new one, I should get access to the old ones too. Just give it to people, because then you can go, hey, look at this old thing, and it is like an antique, but you're never going to constantly use it, because if you pull it out, it's going to be completely outclassed by the other one. So
I'd like to see the old ones going forward. Once they've got, say, you know, the 2960 Aurora, but maybe you go somewhere and you find 2948 Aurora that you can salvage and keep, rather than making them available in a shop. But that's,
again, it sounds like it's a form of to keep the servers alive, like, as in another way to raise money, because they can just literally go around in a giant circle and update. You know, every quarter you can go, oh, here's the update to this, here's the update to this, the next quarter, and just every ship. You know, you got 200 ships. That's still going to take you 5 to 6 years to get through them all, and then repeat. You know, so and again, I don't see them like doing. Like, you know, a Kraken. I don't see them updating a Kraken, because it's just too damn big.
Yeah. But unless there was something major that came along that really enhanced.
But a Herald, like a Herald, because it's smaller, they'll upgrade that 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, I can see them doing it.
Yeah,
I could see them doing it if there was new tech that came along that they could tie with the ships to make things run smoother and. But that's I think that's different from necessarily a different model of a ship. But I think I don't think we're going to see people with an F7C Mark 1 flying around before the game launch. I think if there's F7 Mark 2s, we're going to be flying F7 Mark 2s. If there's the F7A, I think the F7A.
We'll see.
I think we'll all have the Mark.
Because they've talked about us having to potentially buy an upgrade to the newer Super Hornet and Hornet. So we'll see. I think we might find out with what's going on in the files. All right, we'll take a little bit of a break now. We're going to give you guys an update because we're about the halfway point. So this is the GoFundMe for CitizenCon. We have had a very generous donation of $400 that has put us up to $1,000. So we've almost doubled what we were from last week. I think we're at $570 last week, and so we've had a couple of ones this one, but a very big $400 amount there. So that has pushed us up to $1,000. We've only got, what are we at now? Well, to get my fat ass there, I think it's about 3,000 something. So yeah. I'm a third of the way there, Algared. So yeah, we'll just give an update. But yeah, thank you very much to everyone that has donated on Patreon. Above and beyond type of thing. But yeah, it's definitely gonna help me and Algared out getting there. So yeah, we'll see how that goes.
I took care of visa stuff yesterday, and it was an expense I wasn't expecting.
You want to tell people how much it was, just so they well, it's
about
another
500.
Yeah. So our passports and visas here in Australia are the most expensive in the world. So it's kind of ridiculous.
I was expecting maybe 100 or so, but no, it was.
Yeah, it was great. Well, I think you're not technically a citizen here, and I think you turn around and said
No, I'm a bloody pom.
It was like $5.50 to become a citizen, so it's only $50 more. But then he had to do all these tests and shit, and it took like 6 months.
Yeah,
but it's like, do I?
Yeah, we still kind of have our White Australia policy test, you know. Let's see how much you know about Australia.
Yeah.
If you fail, we're not going to let you in.
Yeah.
Back in the day, they used to have the White Australia. We call it the White Australia policy. I don't know whether it was officially that, but their test was say the Lord's Prayer in a language, and usually it was English. And if they didn't want you, it said say this in Swahili, or let's see, say it in Old English. You know, they could just pick out anything if they didn't want you in, and it was absolute maggot.
Yeah.
But yeah, the re-entry visa was like, but hey, that's life.
Yep. All right, we're getting into politics now, so I'm going to start.
Well, it's interesting. It is, but it's interesting because we just looked at the the GoFundMe and other stuff. And we're talking about CitizenCon, and our next question is: the CitizenCon in Manchester this year will be for sure under the Squadron 42 release star. Do you think we will see some of the actors at the con?
I'll let you answer that one.
Everything I've seen and heard says this is Squadron 42 either release or announcement of date. Right. My gut feeling says that I'd like to think it's the release date, and I think that's what CIG are aiming for. But if it's an announcement of a date for Quarter 1, great. Because of that, do I think we'll see actors there? I wouldn't be surprised. I am led to believe that Mark Hamill was going to turn up to CitizenCon last year, but the writer's strike actually stopped him.
They might not be there this year. It looks like they're doing another one already. So, they want to do another one.
So would I expect them there? Yeah, I could see that. I could see. Let's say I think John Rhys Davies lives in New Zealand, but I could see him going. I could see Mark Hamill going. I could see Gary Oldman. I'm sure if possible, guys like Henry Cavill would turn up because he's just a gamer nut. But do I know that for certain? Absolutely not at all. But would I like to see them there? Yeah. Can I guarantee they're there? Nope. But that's what I think they'd be there if they could.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see who turns up. If they do.
Are we completely off our rocker? Or am I just dreaming, complete hopium or copium?
Well, let's put it this way. We've never had one before.
No, we've never had one before. So never say never.
All right. Drop Yogurt says, question, is the change for the game ship prices coming in 323, or do you think they will do it sooner? I think it would be 323.
Yeah.
Because that's where vast majority of the flip over has happened. When I say the flip over, I mean from Squadron to SC.
Yep. And I think that the change really ties in with like April, May. May's usually when we get Invictus. I think that's where the flip is will come when they get that major change. And I think that's where we'll get our price changes. So yeah. Never say never, but that's what I think. Okay, Carsten Kirstensen says, should a C8R owner be able to have his Medbed drone pick him up and heal him if he gets shot in a bunker or something?
No, because that's a feature of the Apollo.
Yep. C8R doesn't have a drone for its
Remember, thing. It's the low entry point. It is the bare minimum. Yep.
So sorry, you'd need an Apollo. And then would you pre-program the Apollo to do that?
I think you should possibly be able to scan yourself, then stand up, look at the treatment thing, go do treatment on me when I get back into bed, and then get back into bed. But at the same time, it would depend on what that's causing the problem. If you literally have like something that is slowly killing you, if you die before it heals you, you die, you know? But if it's just like you've got a broken leg, yeah, sure, no problem.
But the other thing is, you know, you're injured, you've been knocked down in the bunker. You've pre-programmed your medbed to pick you up and take you back to the ship.
No.
But even if you could do that, how are you going to get repaired?
Again, it's a tier 3 bed. It is designed for low level injuries. If you are
I'm saying Apollo. I am saying Apollo.
Okay, well, again, you shouldn't be able to go down into a bunker.
Even if you could, and I'm agreeing, but even if you could take it down to a bunker, pick you up and bring you back, who's going to, you know, you don't have anyone to actually start the medical process. So I would say no.
But by the same token, if someone's sitting in the Apollo and it is the drone is small enough to fit down into the bunker, yeah, they can fly right down and pick you up. I've got no problem with that. They can
send the drone down, pick you up, and bring it back and start the medical process.
But again, it is the bare minimum. It is a drone, and there is no robots in law that we know of currently. They're drones. So essentially, they're essentially, when we've talked about drones, they're a snub fighter mixed with the hand tool.
Remote control turret.
Yeah, and remote control turret and the hand tool. They are not. They are very low level stuff. So it just allows you to very quickly, essentially, change locations. And they talk about this in the design doc for the Vulcan. Is you can essentially set it up and it will automate the process and keep doing it for you. Right. That's fine. Right. So it's partially AI based. Right. So you can say. You might be able to say once you've picked the guy, let's just say return to the ship, and it will return to the ship. That I have no problem with, but you can't have it fully automated.
No.
Because some parts of that is too complicated, and you go into AI territory, and we know AI is not a part of Star Citizen. Automation is different from. Think about all the machines that we've had in factories and stuff up until this point. You know, there's ones that make springs and stuff like that, and they're just all done off mechanical movement and stuff like that, or a repetitious behavior system, but there's no AI in them, right? It's the same thing. You can do something repetitious or follow a pattern. It's very different to I can go search and find this very
shot and down.
Let me finish, please. This very particular person, this very particular thing that would have sentient like properties. That is very different.
Yep. 100% agree. I could see you having a drone program to pick you up if you drone to pick up a down person, but to actually have it to work out, I've got to continually scan you, you're down, send the drone. That getting more out of that drone aspect, isn't it? It's moving more to that AI. So I think even if it could do it, you wouldn't be able to heal yourself. And if you're solo, then all you're doing is the guys who shot you if it was players, could come up, kill you in the bed, take your ship. So, either way, I don't think it saves you. So, yeah.
The other thing that a lot of people haven't thought through is like there are going to be certain people that you might be going to get them, and I mean going to get them as in like attack them.
Yep.
But you don't want to kill them. You want them as a hostage. You want them as you want them alive. Because they're more valuable alive than they are dead. You know, if you get the org leader of another rival org, you don't want to kill him.
No.
You don't even want to capture him because then he can drop out and load back in. You want to keep him alive and kicking because then you can extort him for whatever you want. And yet, if you live in piracy terms.
And yet CIG did also talk years ago, I don't know if you can recall, but not about the idea, because people were saying, I could capture someone and keep them indefinitely. And I remember Chris saying, well, if you're a prisoner, you could have the option to say, I'm going to wait and see if I'm saved, or you could take the I'm dead option.
Again, that guy might try deliberately to kill himself.
Yep.
And you got to stop him. Tractor beam him as he jumps off the cliff. You know.
But I think certainly if you were a prisoner in a cell, the idea that I recall hearing from Chris is you could make the choice. I'm not going to hang around. I'm not going to wait to be saved. I'm just going to, I'm done.
So Citizen Scott is reflecting what you said about the pods, but I'm saying by the same token, if there is a way you can keep them from logging out or essentially reloading when they've been you're capturing with them out, putting them in a pod. You know, if you can lock them in a place and keep them there, like if you can just pick them up with keep knocking them out. And just keep knocking them out.
We've already spoken years ago about not wanting that to be a permanent thing.
Yep.
Because he doesn't want to screw people's gameplay. You might want to screw my gameplay. Chris doesn't want to screw my gameplay. You've got me. I lose.
I'm not saying
got a pod with someone in it.
I'm not saying I want to do that, Algared. I'm just telling you there are going to be people that are going to try and exploit the system.
Yep, there will be people who try and exploit it, but CIG don't want that to be the case. They want people to be able to, if they're in a no-win situation or they believe they're in a no-win situation, to say, I'm dead.
It'll be interesting to see how they do that.
Yep, so, yeah. And we don't know how they're doing that, but that's one of the things they said, and that's ages ago they were talking that. So have things changed in where they want to go? I hope not.
All right, Citizen Scott says, hacking, how do you think they will do it? How would you do it? Give me your wildest dreams theory crafting. I once worked on a mod for a game called Dystopia, which was a Half-Life mod at the time. And they had, their hacking was you actually went into like a virtual world, and it was a little bit like Tron in the virtual world, where you went through and you could fight the other hacker. So there's so many different ways you could do it. Is it just like a maze system? Is it a mini game? Is it like typing and stuff like that? It's however they want to implement it. And that's what I talk about, where there's so many unknowns with the gameplay, because they can bring it out and they want it to feel like hacking, but it might just be something you completely hate. So you know, like, and that was my worry way back when. Like, I was like, oh, okay, this salvage sounds kind of interesting, but will I actually like salvage? So you have to kind of think that they're wanting to at least emulate what it is in real life. So they're going to want it to feel like hacking, fighting firewalls and stuff like that. So I kind of think they wouldn't go into the virtual world so much. They'd probably leave it more in the kind of, you know, firewall type thing. So you're trying to lower firewalls and get, you know, and the other guy's counter hacking you and just trying to raise them and stuff like that. A little bit of a cat and mouse game is what I picture. But yeah.
Yeah, I guess they want it to be more gamified in terms of mini games, or prevent, you know, they're doing this, but if you can do X, and it's almost a speed aspect. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Again, many different places.
I don't want it just to be a plug in and wait for 5 minutes and hold them off with guns. That would be boring.
Yeah, and you can look to what we've got in game right now. That's kind of what we've got, but I want it to be. Yeah, it's got to be better than that, because that's pretty.
But I think what we've got now is just our first tier, our first level of that, and I expect that we'll see that change, and there'll be more things you've got to do rather than just press the button every 5 seconds, or whatever it is. But yeah. But it's not generally my thing to go hacking. So
I've heard someone say way back when it should be like Pac-Man. They're trying to chase you and you're trying to get out of the maze and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, in a sense, that's kind of it, isn't it? It's almost if you're trying to break into the thing and I'm trying to stop you, there's a speed aspect. If you've got to get through the maze before I can close it off, that is a bit like Pac-Man. So yeah, I could see that. But yeah, it's a bit more complex than that, I imagine.
There's also no reason it can't be multiple different mini games and say it's different types of security from different manufacturers. So you've got different ways of doing it, you know.
And different levels from the different manufacturers. Yeah. So, you know,
and then you can
A, B, C, D, E.
You become a specialist in one particular hacking technique. And so, yeah, it's different in different ways.
Oh, crap. I brought the tools to crack into Aegis, and this is an Anvil.
Yeah.
Woe is me, yeah.
All right. Vonda under Sloddens and Zocken says, question, any able news about physical release of Squadron 42 SC game boxes? Following question, do you think we will get overflow with Squadron merchandise and release? So, news about the physical.
No, able to share any news about physical release.
No news about the physical, but I assume it is still a thing based on the fact that they've got to make them already for people that have pre-purchased them. So, but by the same token, we're seeing sweeping changes across the globe this year. Like Best Buy is going to stop selling physical media. And the reason they want that is there's more money in not having physical media.
You don't have to worry about shelf space.
No
storage.
No secondhand stuff. So once the secondhand market disappears, you can only buy new stuff.
Yep.
And if I buy it, Algared, I can't sell it to Algared. So it makes them more money, and they can sell it at full price. So it's not like I brought it at 40. Oh yeah, I'll give it to you for 20. Right?
Yep.
That's what they're trying to stop. And that's why you're seeing a massive amount of YouTubers talking about physical media. IGN did a video on it. That tells you everything you need to know. They are the most shield media company I know for video games. So if they're telling you to go get physical media, that tells you how bad it is, right? So if you've got Blu-rays, games, all that, they're becoming necessary. Well, if the asteroid comes tomorrow, so to speak, you're not going to be able to jump on the Star Citizen servers. You've got no internet connection. But I will be able to chuck a DVD in and watch a video, you know, because that's as long as I've still got power. But you get my point, right? I don't need to get power from the other side of the globe, but I do need to get my internet from the other side of the globe. You get my point, right? So, yeah.
But will we see an overflow of Squadron merchandise at release? Yeah, I think we will. I think they'll do that.
We've kind of got pictures.
Release stuff.
We got pictures to that effect last week with the Mercury Starliner ship Algared.
Yeah, that was right, and I wouldn't be surprised to see other stuff. Like when I saw the Mantis model, I initially thought, oh, there's another one, because it looked so good. But yeah, I know that that's been a question that people have asked over time. Will we be able to upgrade? Will we be able to get the bits and pieces that come out? I don't think CIG have even thought that far ahead in terms of how they're going, you know, but I expect they will. If that makes, yeah, I'm babbling now. I'm obviously tired.
That's fine.
But yeah, I think they will. I hope they will, but I can't guarantee that.
Monster Avery asks, think we will see a redesign of the Starliner when they get E1 finished or updated? He's talking about the Genesis Starliner. Absolutely. It's pink for one, where all the others are white. I think it's just kind of a bit of an update, a dated design. And this is more of a lore question. Where does the Genesis sit in the lore of Crusader? Is it their oldest ship, or is it?
I can't do their oldest ship, but it's certainly a it's certainly a ship that ties in with. It did everything.
So let me re-ask this then. Is it a ship that would look good if it was old?
Well, it could.
Okay.
But the problem is with it, when it first came out, it was the Starlifter. It was basically the Hercules. It was a luxury, you know, the Air Force One used by the government. They don't, you know, I think even Dave Haddock said that's not necessarily the case anymore. They use different, multiple different ships they use. So things have changed. And I'm not sure where they'll take it, whether they'll make it just a passenger transport or if it's a luxury transport. I don't think they'll go straight cargo because I think that's what the Hercules does. So that aspect of it's been pulled out. There was an e-warfare version of it originally, you know, so, you know, but so in the original kind of what variants there were, I honestly don't know where they're going to take it.
I definitely think it needs a reconcept because it was one of the first Crusader ships. And
yeah,
it's definitely...
I think it was certainly one of the first was sold or available.
Well, if you even look back at the ISC they did recently on branding, they essentially said they had like maroon and white and blue and white. Now, if I'm not mistaken, they're now moving to the blue and white.
Yeah.
That means the old Crusader don't work anymore. As in the Genesis Starliner.
Yeah. Yeah. And you look around...
It needs to become blue, ironically, like the Air Force One you were talking about.
Yeah, and if you look around at Orison, there's no maroon. I can't recall seeing any maroon.
Well, the gas itself is maroon, isn't it?
Yeah, but that's about it. Yeah. All the structures, all the platforms, everything else, it all seems to have that blue.
Yeah.
The blue colouring. There might be somewhere it's got the different colouring, but I can't recall. So yeah.
Yep.
Sorry, I can't answer the question. I'd like to, but yeah, it's just too.
I think it's safe to say that.
I think they'll redesign it.
I think it's safe. Things have to change because Crusader's changed. They didn't have they didn't do any weapons. Like the whole lore of that company has changed. It has to affect things, and that's the very first thing that came in. I think you're more than likely to see it move to just a transport ship for people. Yep. It'll be the domestic. It'll be the intergalactic domestic version of today, like this, the what do you call it, the 737 that goes. So domestically in Australia, we have 737s that like go between Sydney and Melbourne and stuff like that, and then international flights are things like 747s. So I think you're far more likely to have it as in that type of ship, a 737 or a 747 that literally goes between planets, moons, and systems, and it focuses just on people.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think they'll redesign it. That's probably the best set. However, where they'll take it, I don't know. Citizen Scott. They've said that we'll be able to sell or trade in our ships. But that might affect pledge store sales if it's PV, if it's pay to play. Do you think we will get that feature? If so, when?
They said they'll be able to sell or trade in our ships, but that might affect. It'll be once the game is out, obviously. They have. I think that has kind of been said yes and no a few times now. So I think that's one of those things that they'll look at and reassess. But yeah, I don't think there's really too much to worry about from a point of view where we only make up 10% of the player base, so they can skew it with AI to go back in their favor whenever they need. So I'm not too concerned, realistically. Algared, do you have any concerns there?
I don't think it's going to be pay to play.
No.
Although there'll always be that option.
Yeah.
So Chris always had the idea, or wanted the idea, that if you were a person who was time poor, you would be able to play the game and not be hampered and take the grind out by buying credits or buying the ships or whatever. And if you had the time to earn the ships, you wouldn't be disadvantaged. You'd be able to earn them.
And ironically, that works out in the real world, because the people that are time poor are usually working and have money, and the people that are time abundant usually don't work but don't have money. So it ironically works out in a weird way.
And the people who are buying stuff and who are time poor, they're actually helping keep everything rolling.
Exactly.
So it's a win-win.
Yeah, you want to give them the reason to keep paying and playing.
Because if I'm continually playing, but I'm never advancing because I'm behind the 8 ball, because because X is playing 24/7, I'm going to stop.
That was half the reason, wasn't it? It was like you there's no grind in this because you can just start playing with it. Well, there's no leveling. Everyone's on the same level. It's a skill-based system. I think the only thing that's going to lock you at all is the rep system, and I want to know how they're going to actually kind of get that to work. Do you get some rep because you're in the same org as these people, and so your org rep grinds through? Do you? He's on my friend list, so he's able to give me a percentage of his XP. Like, how are they going to do that? Because if you could just pay to skip rep grind, so that's a grey area. Yeah, it's a grey area. So I'd like to know how. That's my biggest concern left, because if you look at all the other systems, you can see how that's been taken out. But the rep one, they've never explained.
No, but I've always had the impression that the rep of your org, like if you're in an org, the allies of that org or the enemies of that org kind of cross over to you. And they did talk about when you die, you'd inherit some of the rep and the consequence of that. So they've kind of skirted around it, but they've never really zeroed in.
Well, that's why I said, like, and that's like your org. If you're a member of an org, do you get some percentage of that XP because by association type of thing? Yeah.
But how much that is, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone knows.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be the hardest thing. I think the other hard thing with the part-time player or the casual player or the time poor player is not necessarily being able to access the ships. It's actually mastering the ship. So if you're playing all the time and you're on your reclaimer, you know your ship back to front, inside out, and everything else. If I'm playing every 3 hours a day or 3 hours a week or whatever it ends up being, and I'm taking out my reclaimer, you're going to be much better at salvaging bad Idris than I am.
But by the same token, you'd have to assume, like in other games, that the person that stays home during the week, they're going to farm materials and stuff that for you and that as well to help you out.
Yep.
Knowing when you come back along, and they're going to bring you up to speed.
Yep. And
You know,
that's
hey,
where your
oh,
orgs and your friends and stuff come into play.
Look what I learned, and teach on the knowledge.
Yep.
You know, exact same. Yeah.
But knowing the ship and being able to fly the ships effectively and maximize the abilities of the ships, I think that's where the big difference is. That skill aspect.
Mm.
If you're playing all the time, your skills at flying that particular ship are going to be far better than my skills if I'm only playing 4, 5, 6 hours a week. It has to. You know, so
all right.
I think that's how we'll get part of that balance.
Carlston Christensen says, question, do you think the shop starter will be a food truck? I'm going to say yes for a really weird reason. Paul talked about a citizen truck at CitizenCon with 3 different developers, and they all liked the idea, but they hadn't talked to anyone about it, so he grabbed all 3 of them and made them talk to each other about it. So yeah, it could be a thing. He's brought it their attention. But yeah,
I'm sure you remember the old April Fools.
I just wanted to say, I also think different manufacturers will come into it, because if you look at shops have, in the real world, they have different technological levels and different types. So you can see an industrial shop will be very different from what is required for a food shop. And ironically, I think they almost fall a little bit under base building. You know, like an industrial building can have cooking facilities and do it at mass production, but it's very different from fine dining. So ironically, you know, that one where we saw with high design, industrial, military and stuff like that, you could literally have buildings that fall into those 4 categories. So if you bring it down to a ship or a shop ship that's a single shop, I could literally see 4 ships.
Yep. And even though they're just doing food, you could have your junk food, and then what advantages or impact does that have apart from cost of credits? So
and you can the other way you can go is tailor it towards different things. So like you can have your food truck, but by the same token, I can totally see a fine dining experience or a fashion store in an Origin ship. You know, so I haven't really sat down and really articulated this all out, but I'm telling you, if I gridded it up, you could pretty much find out how many ships they want to do. But again, the other thing I'll look back on is we had high design, and I believe it was commerce, and Origin was halfway between the 2. And all we've seen currently for them is high design. So that means we've only seen half their bloody ships. So there's that tells me there's at least 3 or more commercial-based ships to come from Origin.
And we know that in lore, the 600i originally was a cargo ship.
Yep. Which is commerce as well, by the way.
Yep.
But yeah, I would lean into, like what I said to Algared, I could totally see an Origin ship that had 2 shops on it, and you can mix and match the different ones. And I said I could totally see one though that is like a fine restaurant and, you know, like a fashion shop on one. But then again, it might also work better as one. You know, and you have to pick between the 2 modules. So it's interesting to see where they're going to go. And it's like I said before when I was talking about the agriculture and stuff like that, there is so much gameplay that we have just seen the tiniest minute piece of, but we know it's there because they've, essentially talked about it or steered in that direction. Biopods on the Endeavor, right? It just goes on and on and on. The Sentinel, e-warfare. But the only other thing that's even remotely like e-warfare is the missiles on the Defender and the Raven. We don't really have this. We've got a vague idea of what e-warfare is, but where's the Corvette? There's someone was talking about the Aegis capital ship, a giant.
Where's the Aegis
e-warfare ship?
Indicator.
No. You change what I'm trying to say, but yeah, the Aegis, a giant Aegis e-warfare ship. We don't. There's all these other ships that we just don't have. You know, someone talked about. I heard people saying, "I want an Argo capital." Why couldn't that be a giant agricultural farm ship? That speaks to Argo, you know, so we just don't know. There's all these different ones left to go. Again, if you grid it up and look, there is clearly massive gaps in ships missing. And I know we're almost coming up to that 200 ship point, but I would say that they've got room for another 100 ships easily. just based on the ones that are missing.
Well, I can remember the April Fool's Day joke with the Big Benny's Reliant food truck. How popular was that? That was really popular. The Reliant's not a very popular ship to my memory. That was like everyone wanted that skin. Everyone wanted that ship. You know, so yeah, I could certainly see a starter ship top. But yeah. Von der Undersklossen says, and yeah, I'm sorry I butchered your name. There are streamers who claim that Star Citizen will go into beta next year. What is your take on this? I will sorely miss exploration gameplay, Carrack, or research gameplay Reliant Send. The only way I know that it's up, that is that you only go into beta when the features have been implemented.
And are they implemented?
And that answers the question.
You have your answer. And
I think we'll see.
If they are by the end of the year, you have your answer. You will see it coming, mate. You'll see it coming.
I think what we'll see is, I expect, if we don't see Squadron 42 released, I think we'll see Squadron 42 in beta or at CitizenCon, and then, you know, that's going to be released.
I do want to stress, though, Algared, there is a very big difference between Squadron 42 and Star Citizen.
Indeed.
He said in his question, Star Citizen.
Yeah, I know. But I can only see Squadron 42. I can't see Star Citizen being at that point. I could see I could see people getting the confusion and saying, "Oh, Squadron 42 is going into that's Star Citizen." I don't see Star Citizen getting it because so much of the gameplay is just not there. So, yep.
Yeah. And like I said way back at the start of the year, and Algared and Space were in that video as well. If you look at what happened with Squadron 42, they did all this foundational stuff and then built it up. It is clear they are flipping that over to Squadron from Squadron to Star Citizen, and they are now foundationally building up the multiplayer. Exactly the same year. I think at the end of this year, we'll have a really good foundation to spread out. I don't think you're necessarily going to get a heap of gameplay, but I think what you're going to get is that core stuff. So, like, you can tell with the raids, they're moving more into the multi-crew. But once they've got that multiplayer, you can take that multiplayer and put it on a ship. You can put it on a ground base. You can put it on a space station. So it's that core multi-gameplay, and then it'll spread out from there.
Yep. I think you can clearly see that shift, that pivot, in the monthly reports this month. When the Squadron 42 one goes live, compare the Squadron 42 one to the PU. In the past, to me, it felt like Squadron 42 monthly report was massive compared to the PU one. This month, it seems the reverse. It seems small to large. And yeah, so I think you can see that pivot. Ethnification, Execute, and Algared. How did you initially find Star Citizen? And did you pledge immediately?
I did pledge immediately the same day, but my housemate brought it to my attention, and I still live with said housemate, and they think it's a scam. So they kind of came in, told me about it, and then I went and had a look at it, and then we both talked about it in the kitchen for a bit, and then we both pledged for the same thing. He's never gone any further with it. At the time, it was a bounty hunter pledge, which ironically turned out to be the 300i, and he's still got that to this day. And he told me a couple of years ago he thinks it's a scam. So I think he'll be pleasantly surprised whenever Squadron drops. Anyway,
for me, I was looking for a space game. I'd been playing Star Wars: The Old Republic. I tried Star Trek Online. I tried a few other games. I was at that time also quite heavily into War Thunder. I was in a squadron. I was there pretty much every day. And I was talking to some of the guys in the Anzac squadron, and they were arguing over the next great starship. And I said, "What are you talking about?" And they said, "Oh, it's the next great starship. What's that?" "Oh, it's a part of a game." "Oh, what game?" And it was just blood from a stone. Finally got them to tell me where to go. when I found the game, I saw the video from Chris saying as he gets out of the Hornet, and it was basically, Hi, I'm Chris Roberts. You might remember me from such games as, and it was that Roy McClure moment from Simpsons, and I was in. And I looked at the ships and kind of tried to do my due diligence of which would be the best one for me and my mates. And I went, right, Connie. And then it was, let's see what one would be good for me. And my due diligence of searching on the website said an Aurora. And that was my first mistake. But yeah, I pledged pretty much as soon as I found out about the game.
Right. So. Next question. By edification says, how do you think the base Squadron? How much do you think the base version of Squadron 42 will cost?
Let's see. I think they'll sell it with a ship, just like they used to. I think rather than being a $45 base pack, I think it'll end up being about $60, $70.
Yeah, so there's a real push at the moment to move from $60 US to $70. I think knowing that it's coming out on consoles, being Squadron 42, it'll be $70. And they'll make it the same price on PC because that's what's been consistent with other games. If it goes up on console, the console people get really pissy if you try to sell it as a different price, especially retailers. Unlike Algared, though, I think you won't get a ship with it. I think you will log into the game. This is Star Citizen when that eventually drops. So there is two different things.
Again, this question specifically says Squadron 42, so...
Squadron 42 won't come with a ship. It'll just be the game itself, and that's it. They've already split it into...
Yeah, I can see that, yeah.
They've split it into two separate games. But Star Citizen, when it comes out, I think the final plan with that is you can see there's a bunch of starter ships. They'll just say, which starter ship do you want to start the game with? And tell you all the little things about them. This one's really good at this. This one's really good at this. This is the type of lore for this one.
Yeah.
And you pick, and off you go.
So based on that, let's say they were originally selling Squadron 42 as an add-on for about $15. I wouldn't be surprised to see it $45, $50.
I think it's I think it's gonna eventually be 70 for both. And I also don't think we're getting Star Citizen on consoles. I think you'll get all three Squadrons on consoles because it doesn't matter because it's a single player experience. But as soon as you go into the multiplayer, you're at an inherently massive disadvantage when you're on a controller. And yes, we do have crossplay. Eventually, we may get there. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't really care either way, and I'll tell you why. One, when it's on Squadron 42, it's my own solo experience. Two, if you're bringing consoles in to play against PC people, good luck, because you're going to get smashed. It's happened in every game I've ever played.
Yeah. I've seen a Viva Dirt League short where we've got a console player trying to take on a PC player, and they just, they've got their bow and they can't shoot and aim. It's shocking. But I think if they can do it and it brings people into the game, then great. But I just recall the bit what they did on CitizenCon where they showed, and this is what it would look like on a console.
Just to answer, so $60 US is like $110 Aussie dollars. At the moment, there are some games on Steam that are like, I was looking yesterday. Was it something Dogma 2 or whatever it's called, Dragon's Dogma 2, and that's literally the first game I've seen. The standard version's $107. They are literally starting to up the prices on a lot, especially a lot of what would be considered AAA. The Justice League was like $120 something, and so it really depends who they're coming from. Some companies just cap it at $100, like it's really common to see them at 99. And they tend to like to round up a lot here in Australia. So you'll actually do the math on the game, and it'll go from like say it's like $64. They'll round it up to $69.95, things like that. So we'll see.
Which is weird because $69.95 is not rounded up, but
it is from 64 to 69 is rounded up.
Yeah, but $69.95 not rounded. My point.
Oh,
70 would be rounded.
Okay, you're being.
That's why I was laughing at it.
Yeah, no, okay, you just took my whole point and shoved it down.
No.
Right. Next question. Yannial Daughter says, do you think we will ever have unique armors with different looks or status? Yes. Part of the wear and tear system. It's already coming in. You know, we know the painting thing's a thing, part of Data Forge. Can't say why not.
Well, even the fact that you can put your heavy armor with your light arms and your medium legs is already giving unique armors and different looks. So, but yeah.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add to that? Nope.
Nope.
Okay. Right. Second last question of the day. So we're going to be ending 50 minutes early, unless we can get 50 minutes out of these two questions. Shem passed a question. Will the Genesis Starliner have modules or variants? Algared, I'll let you speak about that. You know,
again, hard to say. I would guess. I think originally certainly the original Starliner design did have a whole pile of variants. Whether they'll stick to that, and I think it's more likely they won't, because they've parceled off so many of the things it could do.
Yeah, they've chopped parts out of it, haven't they? And turned it into
and I wouldn't be surprised if it had a module or two, but 6 of one, half a dozen of another.
I think the only other one that I can remember that really had legs for me was a military variant, and I do think a lot of that has moved into the M2. But I could see it so it's a troop transporter instead of personnel transporter. So if it was going to have a variant, I think that's where you'd go. So it's just essentially wider seats. You know, it's like different classes, first, second, and third class, and then military class. So it's not really.
Yeah, and they did have, and they also had back then. They had the passenger transport. They had a full luxury version. They had one that had a small first class and a large mid class. They were literally trying to give you a 747. Was part of the original design, but what they do is it's a tough one. And I think we'll have to wait and see because so much has changed.
Inel Daughter says, do you think we will ever have... Oh, it's the same question, so we can just skip that one. So the last question of the day, I'm going to close the bot off here, is from our mod, Just a Lemming, who says, question, what are your guesses on the two variants talked about on the monthly report? They don't have to be the same variant of the same ship either.
Yep, they could be two variants from two different ships, a variant from two different ships.
Yeah, so we don't have enough info to knock it down. But I can go through all the things that have run through in my head, right? So I'll go through a few of them. Obviously, one of the variants could be the Apollo, like someone suggested earlier.
Yep.
There were multiple pulse spikes in that first image. Does that mean some of them are variants? Right? Don't know. Other random, that brand new ship coming along, the Intrepid, could it have a variant?
Awesome.
Who knows? So I think that kind of covers where I'm going, because if I go any further, it's just going to keep exploding out from there. But you can see very quickly that there's not really a perfect way to limit it down. We just don't have enough information right now.
Probably the only way you could limit it down is look at the ships that have lots of variants and say it's not one of them.
Yeah, and I think your biggest tip of the hat or thought process would be to go to the yellow silhouette, yellow curtain video, and basically go through that. And does that mean we're getting more Retaliator modules, as an example? Are we getting a variant of that small ship, whether it turns out to be RSI or whatever manufacturer?
Could one of those variants be that the MPUV?
Absolutely.
So
the UTV was a vehicle that we heard about, we never ended up getting, and that was meant to come last year. Was that actually worked on? But it was delayed. There's just so many questions there. You open a massive can of worms. So this is why we try and restrict things, right? But you can't always restrict it to a certain point, and at some point it starts to go pie in the sky, and someone's got to reel the other person in. And I'm telling you right now, if you go much deeper, it's just going to explode out and go to crazy town.
Just accept that we've got two variants coming.
Yeah. And when they're variants, that either means it's a variant of a new vehicle or a variant of a ship that we've already got. So you could go out, for example, and go... what was the one that I went to the other while ago, Algared? Me and Algared talked about the Pisces. We did a whole video on what the Pisces was going to be years ago, right? and it clearly needed to be a ship that navigated the jump points, because when the carrot gets there, how does it go through a small jump point when it's a large ship? It can't. So how do you do that? And when they initially released the Pisces, they talked about it actually having a scanning station, and then they brought out the the C8R, and I went back to Algared and I kind of said, "There's your scanning variant. They'll just do it as a separate variant." Now that may never happen, but it's now very plausible,
Yep.
because you take the C8X and essentially chuck in a scanner, and remove a seat or two, or move the cargo around, or whatever you want to do, and make it a variant. When you
Yeah,
can
and
put
I
an
think the
entire
C8R was,
when you can put an entire bed in a ship, it is far
Mm.
easier just to chuck a scanner in it.
and I think the C8R was really the surprise for us. I don't think we really expected to see back then the C8 have their medical version.
It
We
was a
saw a scanner version.
surprise, but it makes a lot of sense,
Yeah,
because
no,
you
it's
can essentially,
100%.
and it started to steer me towards other things. So,
Yep.
if you look at modules, right, as an example, they should be an
Mhm.
extension of what the ship already does. So I look at the Carrack now, and I go, well, medical module, because the Pisces goes towards
Yep.
medical. If you had a cartography based, that huge cartography exploring based version, well, the default cargo one is more cargo, like the default modules are cargo.
Yep.
So the other one, it's taking the initial ship and
And
extending its features. So you can see an explorer variant that has the scanning, and you could probably see even a repair variant of the Pisces as well.
and we've also got now with the Cutter Explorer variant with the scanning station, all this, we can actually get a sizing of what is required to put in a C8X, so or a C8. So we know it could be done in a small ship. So
I
it
would
becomes
also add, though, unlike the Cutter doesn't have a mothership, so it doesn't need
no,
the bed and all that other shit. So yeah, it's
yeah.
totally plausible.
So it becomes So lots of options, but there's just not enough in the monthly report to really nut it down and say, yeah, this is it. Yeah. Without delving into, without mining the data and seeing the names or anything else, you just can't do it.
Yeah.
So.
All right, with that, then we're going to end about 9 minutes early. I'll find someone on. It's not working again. Damn it! I have to do this again. Sorry. All right, I'm going to find someone on Twitch real quick for us to raid. Let's have a look.
As we prepare to say goodbye to Twitch, chill a little bit and enjoy the quiet. Enjoy the crickets. Not that I can hear them.
No, they've gone quiet now. So, someone that
Must be because it's light now.
I thought there'd be more people on the raid, but there is not. No one I really know, other than the bigger ones. So I think we have to raid up. I just don't know anyone. And the other person we raided last week. So I kind of want to.
Now, Machiavelli, even though FN80 does suggest a Terrapin medical variant, in law there are various variants of the Terrapin. A rescue variant is actually one of the key variants of a Terrapin, along with a troop carrier, which is favoured by the Marines. So will we ever get those? Don't know. But that's just another one of those possibilities that could be among those variants that come. So, like we said, when you've got the variants, it really is just a big trying to zero it down. Unless you actually have manufacturer class, it's beyond possibility. There's just so many options.
Some chatter on Twitch. Shan Happens says, any words on Fortuna? Fortuna is on the 14th, I believe. Algared would know more about than I.
Corresponds with St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
Hence why the subscriber flare mugs have a shamrock on them.
Yep. Oh, I did have that up actually at one point. Have I got a quick second to show them before we lose Twitch? Probably not. But I will flick it over real quick. Let's have a look. So these are the the little drinky things. They call them.
They have the first two, and then the next two are the ones you can buy in the store.
Yeah, so it's like a
Which sucks,
wooden
'cause
one.
I think they look better.
Yeah. So yeah. All right, Twitch. You guys have a good week. We'll say goodbye here.
Take care.
YouTube,
Be well.
YouTube say goodbye to Twitch. Twitch could say goodbye to YouTube. You're going to be
Bye,
rating Aldo Brink. Just let him know that we said hello. And hope he's well. All right then. With that, then later Twitch. And they're gone. With that, then YouTube. We got a video already recorded. I think we do have one already recorded, don't we?
We've got to fix my fleet done.
What do we have to do this week? Oh, that's right. We're going to pull episode with Paul this weekend. We're going to pull episode tomorrow to do with Paul. So,
what coming in Invictus? I think it's the idea.
We're going to speculate on the ships coming in Invictus. So, look forward to that coming to you it'll be Monday in the up over, Tuesday in the down under. All right. With that, then, don't forget to like, subscribe, ring that notification bell, and thank you to those people that went that extra mile at the end of the video on Patreon. Algared, you were saying?
I was just saying, yeah, just like, subscribe, hit that bell. Don't forget, leave a comment. We do actually read your comments. We don't always comment. We don't always respond, but we do read them. Feel free to hit that down like button if you don't like what we say, or and if you disagree with what we say, again, tell us. Just be respectful.
Yep. Everyone is
entitled. We do try to take on and read positive and negatives and try to improve what we're doing. So, yeah.
All right, then. With that, then, he's been Algared.
He's been Execute, and we're out of here. Take care.
See you, citizens.